G'day, hobbyists. Anthony, AOS coach here, bringing you faction focus Fyreslayers, and I have two amazing Runefathers and Rune Sons. I don't know which one's which. I'm sure we'll find out very shortly. Um, Two absolute legends in the community who have been playing Fyreslayers since day one, and I couldn't think of anyone better to share us about the new book and how everything's changed and making the most out of Fyreslayers. First things first, I'll go to my left, which is Jason. Jason, g'day.
G'day, Anthony. Super excited to talk tonight. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, you could call me Greybeard. That's my nickname. That's what my teammates call me. So definitely a Runefather, I reckon.
All right, so we've got Jason, Runefather Jason.
Yeah, one of the older ones in the community. So keeping my own if I can. Yeah, I've been playing. I think I started pre-start collecting box. That's what I like to tell people. I got into Fyreslayers, had a 2,000 point list, pre-start collecting. So I paid the money for it.
You are OG. You are original. Maybe it's not OG. Maybe it's like OF, like original Fyreslayer.
Yeah, yeah. 3 Magmadroths, I think, in my first list. In my first 2,000 point list. Yeah, still got those guys. Hoping with the new book, looking forward to getting them back in.
And you've got an amazingly painted army as well that I've seen throughout the years. So I'm super excited to have this Aussie legend. And waking up super early to be here, maybe the biggest Runefather. Is there something greater than Runefather other than Pizza Oven in Fyreslayers?
Grimnir.
All right, you could be a Grimnir.
Gotcha, I guess.
If I get a lot of dislikes on this video, I know that I've upset some people, but at least we have Grimnir / Runefather Kenny.
How you doing, guys? It's good to be on.
So do you want to tell everyone, for everyone who doesn't know who you are, and like that little like micro group, who are you, and tell us about yourself?
I got into playing Fyreslayers the day they dropped. I was overseas in Sweden studying, and I just kept going in because I thought, oh wow, like, you know, dwarfs, they're going to get their own army, a Slayer army. And so I jumped in and I've been playing it ever since. I started a Facebook group when there were 3 of us. I was meeting 2 other people. I don't think one of them even played Fyreslayers. And now it's it's like around 2,500 now. It's just exploded. But it's been fantastic. I've played at this point about 270 games of Fyreslayers solo, so no allies in there. I have played some games like that, but they don't count towards this. And yeah, I've just playing them ever since. I've made some dice. Right now we're making this cool ruler for people on the Facebook group. That's a combat gauge that is a forge key, essentially one of the big, like, that the dad has. So we're making that for our Facebook page if you want to check out the Facebook page. And then I just did my review, which got posted late, but it's on Combat Phase Podcast, which is a weekly show that I do with a friend of mine. And we've been doing that for over 6 years now. So lots of exposure to Fyreslayers.
So we have the absolute legends of the book. Basically the guys who probably should have written the book. So I'm looking forward to kind of digging deep into this army, considering, from my opinion, it's had a lot of changes from the book that we used to know to the book that is the second book. Lots of change, and we're not just talking points, just the way the army works. And I'm excited to kind of dig in deep about who the new Fyreslayers really are. You guys ready for it?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, ready.
So let's say I have never watched a video, I haven't picked up the book. Who are the Fyreslayers? What's this army all about?
Well, so I guess the first thing is old world slayers from the old fantasy. So that's something I think when you look at the army, you have to divorce yourself from that right away. Although they have brought back a Doomseeker. These are one of the Duarden races, very stalwart during the Age of Chaos. They did not close their doors. They stayed and fought. And they are essentially on a quest to reconfigure and to repair and resurrect their god, Grimnir, who is the dwarven god of fighting. So there's Grimnir, who's still in the Mortal Realms. Grimnir's in there. There's a very famous picture of him in most of the rule books or early AOS of him fighting Volcatrix, these 2 magma beasts going at each other. And they're trying to reconstitute him and to get closer to him, but they do that by finding Urgold, which contains his essence, and then hammering that into their bodies in a bunch of runes, which is, sound because they have a good health plan, I think. They have a guy there with a hammer. Like, oh, you feeling some pain? Boom, now you don't. So they are mercenaries in a way, not like mercenaries in the new what's going to happen in the handbook, but they will fight, even though they're order, they will fight for any of the 4 grand alliances, because anybody who can pay them Urgold, and it has to be proper Urgold, will be able to hire them for a little bit, and that's secretly what they're doing. It's not maybe as big a secret as they think it is, but secretly what they're doing is trying to get all that together. And they get out there, and now the new book represents them a lot better. They've developed some of the lore. Their priests come from Chaos Dwarfs. That was kind of a little thing when they brought the book over, and it wasn't really known because it was just like a paragraph or 2 about the Rune Masters. But yeah, they come from the Zargrim priesthood, coming from the Chaos Dwarfs, and yeah, they just get out there and they fight nakedly with giant mohawks. And there used to be a bunch of them that don't die. Now you have less. Some of them don't die as easy, and some of them they have changed. They actually fit what they are in their description. So even though we only have 3 units besides characters, they feel a lot more. Everything feels a lot more like it does in the narrative.
And that's probably like a big misconception, is that it was the old Slayer models, because back in fantasy you had like the Demon Slayers, the Troll Slayers, there was a whole bunch of Slayers, and they just like, no, we're going to separate them, and they're now Fyreslayers. But it's actually not true. It's completely separate, and I think there's some amazing lore where there was an amazing battle between, was it Grimnir and God
Volcatrix. Volcatrix.
Yeah, there's some crazy early kind of narrative that goes way back to like the age of myth, and kind of, you know, really coming through to the age of Sigmar. So Jason, anything you'd want to add about who this army's all about?
Oh, Kenny, you did a great job, because I was just thinking angry naked dwarfs. That's I mean, I played dwarfs in fantasy for a long time, and as I used to build my list around having a 30-man block of Slayers in my army. I had the Doomseeker models. I had everything. I tried to have almost a unique model for the whole unit, and that kind of drove me to go, when the Fyreslayers came out, it's like, fantastic, angry naked dwarves with hair, and I can have a whole army of them. So while they're not the same, like the meta is definitely different to it, it was just a good way to go, that's what I want. I want to see it play like those angry Slayers would. Like, they're supposed to just go in, just get in and fight, and that's the kind of stuff I've played. That's how I've played my Fyreslayers. They're a great army. They've become a defensive army a lot of the meta for the last couple of years since it's been released. But I'm looking at the new book now, and I'm going, this should be an army that I should be running in and starting to hit things. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
So I'm hearing that something like the naked babies and the combat is definitely definitely something that attracted you to the faction. What other things drew you to Fyreslayers?
Well, it was the idea of having another dwarf army that could be fully Slayers. Like having a Magmadroth, that was probably the number one thing. When I saw the Magmadroth model with the dwarfs, like, I love my little guys. I've been playing them for years. There was always these big armies with big beasts and monsters coming out. I went and bought myself a Smaug just so I'd have a big creature, and I haven't painted it yet. Still in pieces. Don't ask my wife about it. But the idea of having Magmadroths, and that really drew me to the army. And looking again at that, my first couple of years with the list, I kept the Magmadroths in. This year at CanCon in January, I had a full infantry list. There were no Magmadroths at all. And it's the best I've resulted with how Fyreslayers were. But now I'm looking at the traits for Magmadroths that we've got in the new book, and Magmadroths are back. I'm looking forward. I'm building number 4 of my Magmadroths, and I've got 5 and 6 in the wings waiting to be done as well.
Wow, Kenny, what drew you to the Fyreslayers?
I think it was the first army that came out. It was either that or the Everchosen. I think it was Fyreslayers first. And so I also played dwarves for the longest time, and I loved them, and I loved the models. And yes, I know when the Volkite box came out, there was like, oh well, that one pose with like the guy who's static pose with his arms out. I mean, I know some people didn't like some of them, to which we just said, well, don't paint them as, you know, Caucasians or as white males, but paint different skin tones and different colors, which kind of solves that issue. But I loved that there was a new dwarf for Duardin, because at the time it was very sort of, very not certain at the time when they came out, because nothing had come out really with new books. And so it was Duardin, I got to see them, and I got to see that they fought with Grimnir, and I loved the Slayers from before. And as I read them, they were just so balls to the wall. You just charge at, like, we only have a few options. but we're gonna just wreck everything in our place. And I love the whole mercenary concept. And you know, I was a huge Gottschalk and Felix fan, so that Grimnir had made it over into the old world temporarily, and now he exists as a substance to be snorted on party nights. Then, okay, cool enough. You know, I love them. I love the way they play. They just run out and hit things, and that's me. I'm not as a dwarf player. I've never done a gun line or sit back. I just want to go forward as fast as possible and get to the fray. And so, I mean, what's not to love about them? They're so happy. Like fighting is their religion.
And I'm sure I'm going to butcher this straight away, but I remember being in Adepticon. Was it? I don't know where. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was the endless. What do you guys call you? Is it your prayers? The endless spell equivalent for Fyreslayers?
Magmic invocations.
Yep.
That lava beast that's kind of coming out from the rocks, and that's crazy. That's so cool.
It is. That's the so that's Godzilla, and then we have the bidet, and then the fence. Are three things.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get to the real names. But for anyone's like, oh, what's this? What's the bidet? I want a bidet. But,
that's for cleaning up.
And a pizza oven, right?
and the pizza oven. So I think it's a great faction. It's super cool. I've played against it many times. It does what it says on the box, which is just runs forward, hits you hard. It whoops you good, and you always have fun. Well, I've always had fun.
Yeah, I've always had fun playing them.
Well, as long as you've had fun and I've had fun, I think it's a great army. It's not one of those feel bad armies.
Look, I think it's been we've had it for a while. A lot of people would face up against me at a tournament and they go, "Oh no, not Fyreslayers," because they expected this wall that they could just not get through, because the Fyreslayers just were known for being tough, could kind of take it, the whole got my hair save or beard save or whatever other save you want to call it, but that after save that allowed them to kind of push up the wounds and go, yeah, no, I'm good, we're still here, you've rolled 50 wounds against me, and oh yeah, I lost one guy. Yeah, people didn't like that one too much.
No, I always found funny the when you charge, you throw the shields into combat. I'm like, that's sweet, but I'm ruining Christmas. We've got a couple of hours to talk about the faction.
Yeah.
So how about I ask you guys, what are the strengths to Fyreslayers?
I don't want to keep going first. Do you want to alternate back and forth, Jason?
Oh, you can go first, Kenny. It's all good.
Well, so I guess the first thing I would say is the strengths now are different from what they were before the book. The book, which we'll get into, is a complete redesign. And it's like you just take the old tome and just shake it and everything falls out. And then you can just rearrange it to the new book. But I think their strengths are that you can have a lower model count army that is still very durable and can hit really hard. And while the range options, like the nerf axis, its throwing axe has changed, they've moved a lot of pieces around into the roles of the units that we had. So I think it's it's an army that can hit extremely hard, and right now is very durable, and now gives you opportunities to play on the same level as anything that's got a book, basically, since 2.0 or even back as far as Deep Kenner Daughters of Cain. So they now have some leg to stand on, and they have battalions that have changed around, and they have some new characters that have come back, and so they can get in, and they also have a lot of board control too, which I don't know what way to talk about that, but the board control is really good for keeping it, since you're slow, with the exception of tunneling and Magmadroth, you can burn things with, like, turn the terrain into volcanoes and do things like that, and that really does help. And I think there's a bit of a people now seeing the Fyreslayers, like you said, Jay's like, oh no, I gotta play Fyreslayers. And so there's a bit of a little psychological warfare with all those things. But they get in there and they live up to the name Duardin, and they wreck face, and now they're a lot more durable with 2 wounds and having the different armor save bonuses as well. So but the strength of this book too now is you have multiple ways to play. Unfortunately, because everything's so expensive, you can't do all those in one game. But you can, we'll be making comment. I don't know, Jason, how many you tried, but I'm still trying about like 12 different concepts over and over again, until I get to one I like, and then you can make a lodge or make your own lodge. Or there's so much you can do now. So now we have a ton of options, which we didn't have before. So that is a big strength in this one.
Yeah, I think when I looked at the way we used to play the Fyreslayers, it was I thought of dwarves when I used to play them. I looked for the hammer and the anvil. I had the anvil. The way I played Fyreslayers in the previous releases, I had this anvil. You could hit me and I could take it, but I didn't have that hammer to strike back. And the new Fyreslayers, this army is now built around you have the hammer. So you can actually choose that hammer army or that anvil army. You can be defensive. It's really far more dynamic than it used to be. I think Kenny said before, we've got 3 unit choices, but within those 3 unit choices, you can actually choose different core choices around that, depending on who you've got as your general. So it really gives a lot of flexibility around what you want to put in. Points means that you kind of play, you can't have everything of all of those, but a really, really good opportunity to mix and match and do some different things now.
Love it. And I think you've kind of started to see that list diversity. When Fyreslayers very first came out, it was very similar. It was big blocks of like little naked dwarves, and that was kind of it. You're now starting to see some really nice combinations, which I think I'm super excited to find out how you guys are thinking about the new book. So we know what they're good at. What aren't they good at? What are the weaknesses that you have to either build around, or things to consider when you're going into scenarios? What aren't the Fyreslayers good at?
You want to take this one, Jason?
Shooting. Shooting is what they're not good at anymore. I think I'm going to forget about the shooting. Like as I go through it, I'm going to almost forget the axes because they're probably not going to hit much or do much anymore. But there is in the runes you can choose at the beginning of your turn. There's a little bit, gives you a bit of a bonus to your axes to hit now, I think. Can't remember it exactly, but that's a change from an extended range. So you've got to pick when you're going to use it. It used to be used as an alpha strike. So I'm going to tunnel my guys up. I'm going to be 9 inches away from you, and I'm going to create a 16-inch range on my axes. Now I'm going to wait until I've got to get you off of that objective. It's late in the game. I can actually do some damage to your guys and move them off an objective before I charge in, throw my shields or other things I'm going to do. So the shooting has changed considerably. It's not one of the strong points. Whether it was really strong since the release of AOS 2.0, probably wasn't quite there anymore anyway, but it's certainly gone kind of in the back for me as I look at the army.
I guess I'd say movement is a major weakness. We do have a movement rune, like you mentioned with the Far Strike rune. We have a movement choice that now used to be 4 inches. Now it's 2 inches, and then the runes can be enhanced if you roll a 6 when you pick your rune in your hero phase. And if it's enhanced, it's now +2 to your charge too. So I mean, it's better than nothing. It's not as good as +4 that we used to have. But movements, you have Magmadroth that can move up, and tunneling. You have the tunneling option to come up 9 inches away. I think I'll tie that to the other weakness I see is that characters. We used to have a lot of hair saves or whatever after save. It's been fun to watch all the different countries around the world talk about what they use as like their beard save, magma save, lava save. It's just been a lot of fun.
So for the record, for Fyreslayers, what is it called? Is it a beard save? Is it a hair save?
They don't actually have a name, but I'm going to go with hair save.
Jason, do you agree with the hair save? Have we just officially stamped it that the Fyreslayer after save is now called a hair save?
I reckon.
Yes.
Hair save.
The tribe has spoken. We have now got hair saves after regular saves.
Yeah.
The first time they said it on Warhammer Weekly, or sorry, Warhammer Twitch, I was like, oh, yes, it's official. It's official. But no, it's not written down in any rules as hair save, but that's what we'll call it. So the heroes are another big weakness now, and how they play into the new army is, the way to beat them is to snipe off the heroes or kill the heroes. But because they're on 32 mil bases as opposed to the Caradron or the other dispossessed, having less models now is doable. But I think one of the other big weaknesses is that you kind of need bubbles if you want to have all this cool stuff work really well. And so having to keep these characters or heroes in that range when you have larger bases is a bit difficult. It's definitely not possible. I mean, we're still able to do it and get good results. But I would say that's another one of the weaknesses too, that you just have to build around.
Yep, I think that's pretty fair. So by taking the Fyreslayer allegiance as opposed to, let's say, just making it a Grand Alliance Order army, what do I get for swearing my allegiance to Grimnir?
Well, a new hat. That's just polite. So you get the allegiance ability. So you get the runes. So there's 6 runes that you can pick throughout the game. You cannot repeat them unless you have a special trait or an item. And when you roll them on a 6, unless you have a trait or an item, then it becomes enhanced, and you get that effect and then an enhanced effect as well into addition. So this in the handbook before, and what it is now too, was a a toolkit to help us maybe get some of the gaps that we couldn't get before, like movement and some shooting and battle shock, rerolling ones, things like that. I am a person who's internationally renowned as having kinetics as this unholy way of rolling dice that does not in any way match any statistics. So I have to build in a lot of redundancy, and it's a lot better in this current book now too. You know, you might say, well, with 2 up, if we were like once, of course you're going to hit like, you know, so you can build that in. They have a nice toolkit then. And then from there, you can go in and you can get yourself a Magmic Battleforge and some Magmic invocations too.
Love it. That's the pizza oven / the terrain piece.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what does it do other than put delicious pineapple on pizza?
You get if you have a priest within, which we have 2 of. We have 2 priests, or I guess 3. One's mounted. And within 6 of it, then you can tap it, and then heroes or priests within 18 inches can add 1 to their prayer rolls. Which is like the prayer on their war scroll, and then 1 of the 6 prayers they know, and then invocations as well. And then so once per game, they just have to make you this like 2 days ago. So it's good that we talk about it now. But you can basically it's called expend the forge or something like that, and then it gives you essentially an army-wide mystic shield, rerolling 1s on armor saves. But then after you do that, you can't use it to power a spell anymore. So cut that out.
Not a spell.
Oh, a prayer. And you also cannot use it to power prayer and to spend it in the same turn as what they just FAQ'd. So like if you want to spend the forge in turn 4, you can do turns 1, 2, 3 powering it, but you couldn't power it and then spend it in the turn it off essentially in the same round.
One other thing you guys get, and this kind of borderlines on list building, is that you have access. So Stormcast have obviously their chambers, Daughters of Cain have their temples. You guys have lodges, and you've got what looks like 4 lodges from what I can see.
Mm-hmm.
Do you start with your list building with a lodge, or do you kind of start building a list and then try to find a lodge that kind of meets the need?
Look, I've been loving your narrative shows, talking about narrative with a few of the guys in Warhammer. It's just I build my list based on what my narrative is for my army. That's kind of how I've done it since I started. I have a Vostarg Lodge list. Back in the old book, I was aiming at, I wanted a full Vostarg list in a 2,000 point list. They changed points on me. It didn't quite get there now. I just get to choose that at the beginning. So I start from what do I want to do? What's my play style? And I have a look at the lodge and then build from there. That's what I'm looking at the moment. I'll probably go with this. I got 2 favorites at the moment I'm liking in the lodges, but it's really good to have this in this book now, that this release, to have, you just pick a lodge. It seemed like there were these great things that you could do with it. The idea of actually theming an army around a lodge, and you could never really quite get there before. And so it's a great release in this book. Vostarg Lodge, my favorite by far, but
I think I generally would start with a lodge, or with at this point, as the book is still new, or deciding some combinations that you would like to do, and that would be the best thing. But yeah, I think, narratively, like, I want to have a lot of Magmadroths, so I'm going to go this way. The Fafnir one, I think when we did previous shows talking about this, introducing it in the frame of the 4 lodges, it's kind of a good way to start, because in doing that, then you can look at the other war scrolls and the items and the prayers and decide what it is you want to do. I think a lot of people right now, we are trying without lodge, which is the bonus there, is you get to pick your traits and your artifact. I think a lot of people are still trying, and I think Hermdar and Volstagg are the 2 most popular right now, or at least the ones that we're getting pictures of. Who knows what's really going on, but the ones that are going to events and taking pictures and sharing them. And a lot of the lists we see over the Fyreslayer list or in the WhatsApp group are around those 2 lodges, if they pick a lodge.
And for people like me who don't know why they're the strong ones, what makes them better than the others, or maybe more popular than the others?
For me, the Vostarg Lodge. My play style after playing Fyreslayers for a few years, I love that run up, charge, get in and attack. So typically in a game with me, we're in combat turn 1, if not top of turn 2. and that's the Vostag Lodge list. So Vostag have an ability that allows them to run a full 6-inch run in the first turn. They don't have to select it, so that's their Lodge ability. So first turn, you just get to go 6 inches extra on your run, and then there's a command trait that you have to give to your general as a part of that. That means that you can, any units wholly within, I think it's 12 inches.
Yeah, it's 12 inches.
Can then do a run and charge in that turn. So those 9-inch deployments in those scenarios, you've got a good chance. You're in combat first turn. You're right up there at their objectives, and that's kind of my gameplay that I've been playing for a while. So I really like that one.
Yeah, that's a neat one too. It's the first one that spoke to me. I'm like, oh, I like to get over there fast. Here's a way to do it. If you take a really big, like not Death Star, but giant blocks of like Hearthguard Berserkers or something like that, and you deliver a lot of Magmadroths, and you deliver them with their little package right away, then yeah, that's a really good one for it.
Yeah.
I think you probably also, Jason, seen a lot of Hermdar lists popping up.
They're
all over the place. It's what I've been playing with the most, but they're really good because you have your units that are immune to battle shock, whether wholly within enemy territory or within. This thing that started with the Khorne book before. I love this mechanic of interacting with objectives. So if you're wholly within 12 inches of objective, you can be immune to battle shock. They let your, so in what I think Donna's Wargamer calls the activation wars, which I love. I love that. So trademark. They have ability to let their 2 fighting units, their Hearthguard Berserkers and their Volkites, activate before and actually fight before other units are picked to fight. And that's a command ability. The command trait, this is a huge one where you have 12 inches out, wholly within 12 of the general, that subtract -1 to wound rolls. So if you get shot or you're in hand-to-hand, then, I mean, that's a huge thing with the -1, because you can already give -1 to hit on your enemy with a prayer, and then if they're -1 to wound, that's pretty good. And then he's got like a taxable icon or artifact that's like against heroes, it does something special.
And there are I guess 2 other lodges. Are they okay? Are they not very good? Like, what's your gut feel of the other 2?
I think, well, you can do Greyford. I can do Fafnir or Lofnir.
I was thinking of Lofnir.
Okay, well, I'll do Greyford.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Greyford. Well, this one definitely speaks. I mean, they all have a place. Like there's different. These are different kits for how you want your lodge to perform and how you want to play your game, your play style. So this one is nice because you get 2 extra artifacts. So even if you don't have a battalion, you can start out with 3 artifacts. And if you want to try the combos of, I want to do maybe an icon that turns off spells and then gives me, also better chance to unbind, or the chance to unbind, then you could do something like that. Or if you want to arm your father and son, and that's what I think the big thing from Greyford is. You can also, it's like the monster match kind of or monster killer heroes, because you have a guy who can go and then activate heroes within 3 inches, friendly heroes within 3 inches. So you can have sort of the Peter Jackson fight scene where all the dwarves are going in unison, banging on something. You could have something like that where they all get to fight, and it's not bad. You get to add to attack characteristics as well as people around you. So these are like the treasure hunters. So you have like the speedy guys, the treasure hunters, the invaders and territory seekers, and then the fun monster mash menagerie, which is the other one you can talk about.
Yeah, the Lofnir Lodge, that's the other one, the last one, and it's a bit like that. Instead of with the heroes, we've got Magmadroth traits now in this book, which means it gives you a different ability for each of your Magmadroths. And with the Lofnir, you get to choose one for each of your Magmadroths. And not only that, your restriction for number of behemoths goes from 4 to 5. So I'm looking at doing a 5 Magmadroth army, and it'll be Lofnir, and I'll run one of those. I'm thinking perhaps Sydney GT, if I could bring 5 Magmadroths for that one. Again, that kind of symmetry to try and get your Magmadroths working together. There's a few abilities around there about one ability that can kind of help other additional Magmadroths as well, so that you start to multiply what you're doing with your Magmadroths with their abilities, working together in a synergy. So looking forward to trying that. Whether or not that's a strong, I've tried Magmadroth lists before, so I'm yet to try this one and see how it goes. And not many people have that 4 or 5 Magmadroths yet, so they're not trying it so much yet, I don't think.
No, I love it. And I think what I'm hearing, which I'm very thankful for, is that it's not like a Daughters of Cain or a Flesh Eater Courts where there's that Hagnar or that Grizzlegore that is just that one that's just kind of stands out above the rest. It sounds like yeah, it just sounds like there's a really good mix of lodges, and you get to pick whatever suits your narrative as well as your play style, or maybe what kind of works for you. So, big thumbs up for me. It sounds like you can't go wrong in any of the four. So I've picked my lodge, or I'm exploring the book, and the first place we always go is normally the heroes, or 99% of the time the heroes. Let's talk about Fyreslayer heroes. Where do you guys start? Maybe, I don't know, 1-1-1 or whatever you guys want to do. But what are the heroes that stand out for you, and why do you pick them? Or what comes into consideration?
Jason, I'm curious what you have to say here.
The Battlesmith is number one. I've always put Battlesmith in first, even small games. I've just started with a Battlesmith. That's been the key one. I think what it still does, there's been changes. It seems less effective, but still what it does, it gives that +1 save now to a specific unit within range. And that's the kind of buff that I've always had with my Fyreslayers list. So I love that one. Is it my favorite? Probably not, but it's the first one I put into the list.
Cool. I mean, I guess I would say if you're building a battalion, then you have to look at that, because there are some, it's a good place to start. There are some that allow you to have some variety in your heroes, whether they're mounted or on foot. But one that I always fit into every list, doesn't matter how I fit. And now they're not leaders, so you can fit as many as you want in.
Yeah.
But it's Grimwrath Berserker. I just love these little guys. It's as closest to like the Berserk insane slayers that don't feel pain until the battle's over, and maybe not even then. And they're just little dwarves on PCP that are running out, just cutting everything up, and they just keep fighting. And now the rules reflect more. It's more reliable how they can fight again and deal damage. And they're still only 100 points. So those and Doom Seekers are not leaders now, and that's on purpose. So you can have multiple ones in there. So you can think like, do I want to do 2 command points, or do I want to have a Grimwrath Berserker fighting out there? And you could just throw them off on their own, give them like the flying cloak or something, a thermal runner cloak, or whatever you need to do, and send them off. And if your opponent doesn't know, they can get in there and they can just start wrecking things. And it used to be you want to get them in kill pockets, and I still think now you want to still get them within 1 or 2 units or heroes you want to slay, because you can definitely deal some damage.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the Magmadragons. So the Magmadroths. So you've got 3 choices, which is your Runefather, your Runesmiter, and your Runeson. Do we like all 3? Is there one that stands out more? Like, what are your considerations? Because I love the Magmadroths. I think they're really cool models.
Yeah, they are.
But how do you kit them out?
Ooh, I mean, I try to have a Runefather in mind, because I like doing Lords of the Lodge as a battalion. If I was doing the other one, then I would do the Sun, the Warrior Kinban. But right now they're all very attractive, and the Runesmith has the ability to do like a bonus rerolling, and then you have also its usual reroll ones, or no, reroll ones, right, to armor saves when it does the bubble effect.
Yep.
So I mean, they're all 3 good. They changed Magmadroths too. The Magmadroths are a lot better now. They still hit on 4s, but they're a lot better now than they used to be. I think that's fantastic. But the Father was always good, because then you have an 18-inch bow. You do the command abilities, bubble of no battle shock. But the Runeson added something new. It's this battering ram, and he could do it to him or another unit that charges in, within 1 inch of a unit, and then you roll. And I think it was a 2-up, and then you do D6 mortal wounds as the Magmadroth kind of charges in and like ramming speed, and puts his head down and right into the enemy. So they're all appealing now. But they're priced $240, $260, and $280. So I guess this kind of depends on what you can get in your list and what command abilities do you want.
Jason, you've had some experience on this one.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them running in pairs. They're either doing Runefather with Runesmiter, or going for 2 Runesons. And I think the symmetry that works. The Runesons have what's it called? Vying for glory. So you're reroll hit rolls for attacks made by the model. So it's not just the hero, it's the whole model. So your claws and horns, it's now got a bite attack on the Magmadroths. That wasn't in there before. So the idea that you actually can go in, you're re-rolling everything with a Magmadroth. That idea of having the Rune Sons play off each other. I've seen some lists. I think, Kenny, I saw your list had the Rune Sons on foot, 2 of them in your list to do the same thing. But the idea of doing that on Magmadroths, for me, I've seen that kind of, that's attractive to me. But the other is that symmetry between the Runefather and his buffs that he's giving to the list, and then having the Runesmiter next to it, having that bubble. And I think, just a correction on that, the Runesmiter gives a +1 to save. So in fact, with prayers from your priests, with the Runesmiter doing that once per battle, all units within 12-inch +1 to save, you'd actually get a unit of Hearthguard Berserkers for 1 round to give them a 2-up armor save.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, there's not many units out there that gets a 2-up save.
Yeah.
That is nasty.
I think I just figured out earlier tonight when I was having a look, there is a possibility, whether you could get it in your points, you could actually do it with a 2-up and then ignoring 1 rend as well, because you get another +1 from another ability that's in there if you had the right unit in there. So pretty good, like pretty durable. I think that idea of having the Runefather and Runesmiter for me is my favorite. That's probably going to be my list. That was in Andrew's list at BrizCon just recently, and he came first at BrizCon with about 90 players.
Yeah, Andrew Wright, a Fyreslayer player, just straight after the book dropped, 100 players I think the tournament had. He came first, so it was the first major win for Fyreslayers at a tournament, and that's great advice.
And he's taken the #1 Fyreslayer in Australia spot off of me, and I think it's going to be tough to catch him.
You have to get it back. Defend your honor.
For Grimnir.
For Grimnir. Yeah, I think if I want to do better, I play with, like I said, the Runefather and the Runesmiter on the Magmadroth. But I've tried the dual Rune Sons on the Magmadroth, and it's very fun. It doesn't even need to be a narrative game. If you're just just playing around, you can try it. And I've noticed some hidden gems in here that are way more effective than I thought they would be. So yeah, you got 2 kind of options to build it. And when you get a kit, you get to start collecting box. It's still the cheapest way to get all these things. Then you can go in and you can build the father and the son. Basically, will build either body, and then you can have the other 2 heroes on foot. So when you buy that Magmadroth kit, which is now in Start Collecting, you get 3 heroes, and one of them is mounted. So you don't really have throwaway parts. You can get all of them out of that, and you can just sort of play. If you haven't decided what you want to try in your army, you could put a proxy, put either one on it, and decide what you like, and then you can finish building and painting your Magmadroth.
Love it. Love it. So do you guys run lots of heroes in your army, or is this an army that has just a few? Because I noticed that you got a lot of choices, but do you use them all?
Yes, I very much do. Well, I think a lot of that deals with, now it's all about the synergy and bubbles and placement, I think, or the buffs. But I go forward with Hearthguard Berserkers. Usually I usually make a Runefather general because I want Hearthguard as Battleline. I want to take a large unit of them. And if they have, they have a 6-up hair save, and then since we all know what that means now, and then that becomes a 4-up, but there's a friendly hero within, it's not only within, just within 10 of them. So you have more bodies to make sure that they keep, when you're getting sniped or killed with your characters, that you still can give them that massive save. So, I don't necessarily, I sometimes repeat them. I'll get maybe like 2 Runesmiters or 2 Battlesmiths or 3 or 4 Grimwrath Berserkers. But I do try to get a little bit one of each now, because all the characters now I think are good. All the heroes have been adjusted with mechanics, and they actually play like they do it in the lore, which is very attractive too. If you're just getting into this, like, oh, that's cool, Battlesmith, he's got this totem with all the writing on there. This guy here, he's the guy that hammers the runes into us. This guy's got a volcano, and he brings it up. And there's definitely a role for each of them. And I do try to get in a nice combination. I try to get at least 4 or 5 different unique heroes. But my list will almost always have 5 to 6 heroes. Sometimes now even more.
And why would you be taking 5 and 6? And then I'll come to Jason. But why would you have 5 and 6?
Well, again, a lot of that is for having that Lords of the Lodge or the Hearthguard Berserkers. And even if you do a larger unit, like 15 to 20, just kind of the sweet spot, and you maybe do a unit of 5 or 10, keeping them with that 4-up hair save as opposed to a 6-up. I think is very, very important. That unit is to be very durable, and it does a lot of your heavy lifting. It does a lot of damage. I probably 5 or 6 also, because I would want the Lords of Lodge takes 3 here. You have to have Battlesmith, a Runemaster, and a Runefather, whether on foot or mounted. So that's there, and I always want a Grim Wrath. And I would probably like just to have a smiter, either to tunnel or do something. But it's a priest now. We have 2 priests, and we have prayers. We have the prayers on their worship cards. We have the prayers they can pick in the book, and then they have the invocations if you buy them, which is just like the endless spells, like the core prayers as well. So I would want to have multiple heroes in there. And again, this is for me, and I have terrible dice rolls, but I managed to do pretty well over 3 years and 270 something games of playing these guys. I've definitely won more than I've lost, and I think a lot of that, the buffs and redundancy and having that in there, and the flexibility to move if the unit gets destroyed or to run over here, we're going to have a lot less bodies now with this army than we used to. So you might think, well, I would just get more infantry, but the infantry can only do so much, and sometimes these guys with the buffs are so crazy, they're so good, and you have to work around with the different combinations to get them in there. So obviously, if you're starting, you maybe get a start collecting box. If you get 1 blister, you can do 3 or 4 heroes. That's fine. But as you play more, I think you'll probably go up towards 4 or 5 heroes. But it just depends on what's good for you.
Jason,
in a tournament list, I don't think I've had anything less than 5. It's just always been about what each of the characters can do, and they are very different, unique, the heroes. So one will give you assistance with your saves, another one with your battle shock, and now the changes that are happening with the Runemaster. I mean, Lords of the Lodge, I've run Lords of the Lodge in every tournament list I've ever played. I've always made that kind of the basis for starting my list. Lords of the Lodge will include the Battlesmith, Runemaster, and a Runefather. And the Runemaster was one of those, it actually gave a buff to your opponent. They got to select one of their units and give them a buff. Reroll 1s to wound, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then if you got close enough with that one guy who moved 4 inches a turn, if you got within 10 inches, then it would give your whole army a buff to reroll the hit and reroll the wound against that unit or something. No, an additional
attack
characteristic.
Yeah, you call them out.
And you know how many times I got that off in 3 years? Maybe twice. Like it doesn't happen often.
4 times.
Yeah. So now the changes to that, the idea of prayers, and that you can start to load up, because the idea of doing your magmatic invocations as well, being able to bring multiple things on at a time, you want to be able to do that. I mean, I'm looking at the Lofnir Lodge and thinking, I can have 5 Magmadroths, I can bring on, what's it called, the Molten Infernoth, and it's like having another monster I've got up there. So I've actually got 6 behemoths running at you in essence. So each of these characters have a different role, but they all work together to strengthen the army. So I've always had 5 or 6, and yeah, I think Kenny's list I just saw was 7 heroes in it. Somebody commented, "How can you have 7 heroes?" Because there's no leader trait to the Grimwrath Berserker anymore. So you can. I've seen lists coming with 6, 7, or 8 Grimwrath Berserkers in it, and they look a little crazy.
Yeah, and you've got the Doomseeker as well, which is the one that's from Warhammer Quest, I think. I don't know if they've ever released it separately, but what do we think about the Doomseeker? Like, that's a new addition to the book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was released. He was with Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, and then you could buy him in a blister. And then he went out of stock online. Now he's back. I think he's for what he does now, he's a lot better. He's 100 points. He doesn't have leader. If you're a diehard fan of old dwarves, this is the closest you're going to get to an old Slayer, because he has the Barak Doom, I think it's called, Raka's Doom, and that's the shame. I'm going to go out and basically fight until I die in worthy combat. But he's I think pretty good because of so he's got 2 things basically. As he gets wounded, he gets better at fighting, and then he also gets to pick a sworn enemy that he can go after, and he'll get attack bonuses against them. I think he can pile in twice.
At the end of the combat phase, he gets to pile in an attack if he's within 3 inches. Yeah.
Whops it again. It's like, stay down. Yeah, for 100 points, it's not bad. I guess, so the reason my list that I did for the Bruce City next week had 7 heroes, is I had 200 points. I'm like, well, I guess I can make a unit of 30 Hearthguard for Lords of the Lodge. Like, well, that's really kind of unwieldy, though, when you have that many models and trying to keep them where you need to keep them now, wholly within. That's kind of tough. and I could take a bunch of command points, but I decided to take 2 Rune Sons to try the vying. Have them on foot, and I can separate them if I need to. It's good because sometimes you need a little bit of just backup. You need heroes to stand back, maybe and guard your other ones, or just something to help them out. So I think there's actually kind of a little hidden gem. I'm going to see how they do over the 5 weekends, but in the game I played, or the 2 games I played with them, they've worked out really well, actually.
Love it. Anything else you guys want to talk about? I guess maybe the only other hero that I'm maybe reading is the Underworld's Warband. So that's a hero choice as well as I guess a generic choice. That's the Chosen Axes, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name.
Fjolgrimnir.
Looks like, yeah. Have you guys have you tried the Underworld Warband?
I have. Have you tried it yet?
No, I have not. I was just talking to somebody about warbands today, and the idea of a good way to get into the game if you want to get in and get a little bit of models. I was talking to some Magic the Gathering players and trying to convince them come over to Age of Sigmar, get into miniatures. I said get into the warbands, but I haven't found a use for them yet. I kind of feel like they're a low points cost, which is good, but then the idea that how well they're going to do if they're a small unit get picked off. I haven't tried it yet, so.
Because it's 200 points at the moment. So
yeah,
like that's a significant investment when you think about adding, I don't know, like a Runefather or, what you guys were just saying about Doom Speakers or the Grimwraths. So Kenny, did you say you've run it before?
I did. I made it in a Vostarg list, and because they have an ability that affects a Vostarg if you're using that lodge. Because he's in their history, he's the one that this warband is the one that went into Shadespire. But he had his command abilities. He lets you add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Vostarg units when they're holding within 12 inches of him. So I mean that's really good. You have something else to give you +1 to hit, and a lot of the major change in the army is a lot of things that used to hit on 4s hit on 3s now. So that's been a big difference. So you're someone like me who's not going to roll even a 3-up, or you have a death is giving you a bonus or a slime, whatever it is that's debuffing you. That's really, really good. I think that to me that was worth 200 points. And he's going fast with the rest of the army on turn 1 to try and get across the board, or in the wave after the Magmadroth hit. So I think if you're going to use him, I would use him in a Vostarg Lodge to take full advantage of his capabilities. But I think he's definitely in play now.
Awesome. So
you're convincing me. I think I might make a change.
Yeah, just try it out once. I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah, I'm surprised because most of the time the Underworld's warbands are cool, but they don't justify themselves in game. But it sounds like these guys are a little bit different, and it actually does work.
And the other thing as well, that I think they just introduced it back in the 2018 General's Handbook, and they've done it again with this release. Fjolgrimnir can actually be taken as your general, and if you take him as your general, you can then get your Hearthguard Berserkers as Battleline. I couldn't do that before. They didn't used to have the keyword, but now they use the keyword Auric Runefather in there. So he counts as general and counts as bringing Battleline, and that was a big change in 2018 General's Handbook. But with this bonus, I'm looking at it now going, if I want to have a Runefather on foot, that's a pretty good way to go. So I'm going to give it a go. I'll let you know how it goes.
Well, you can even try it in a 2,000 or 1,000 or 1,500 point game.
Yeah.
You've started transitioning nicely to Battleline, but before we get to that point, I just want to wrap up heroes. So if I'm building a Fyreslayer army, what are the top 3 hero, I guess, like let's wrap up this section. What are the top 3 hero choices I may want to consider, or what's the best combination you would recommend to a new player? Jason, I'll throw it to you first. What's the top 3?
I run Lords of the Lodge, so it's always going to be the Runefather, Runemaster, and Battlesmith. Those are my 3.
And Kenny?
I don't want to repeat his answer, so I'd say Battlesmith, Runesmiter, and probably a Runefather. But I want to have you take Grimwrath Berserkers. We'll do 3.5.
Awesome.
You know what? No, grab a Grimwrath just for fun.
Just for lols. Although technically it's not a hero choice. He doesn't have the hero, so he doesn't have the leader battlefield role.
I mean, he's a hero, I guess so. So yeah, we'll call it in the match play those 3 plus a Grimwrath.
Awesome. I love it. Do you guys?
I have a Grimwrath with a cape.
Grimwrath with a cape
with a thermal rider cloak. I think Kenny was talking about it before. Modeled him up for Sydney Sydney GT last year, and the idea of having a Grimwrath that can just get in and wreck face, like he was my guy that was in every list. So I'd do it again.
So he counts as a hero, but he's not. So you can take an artifact, but he's not
Not a leader.
leader choice.
Yeah, if you're playing match play, he's not a leader.
Awesome. I just want to call that out because some people may not see that, so they might look at their battle tome and go, oh, okay, it's just a unit choice, but actually it's a hero, which means it can have an artifact. And you guys have said like the Thermal Rider cloak, or some, I don't know, sort of judgment or something, and can absolutely wreck face for 100 points.
Yeah, he's incredibly cheap for the price, and the idea now that you can get more than one in your list, you can go over your 6 hero limit in a game. Yeah, a lot of guys are out there trying to have a look at that, see what they can do around trying to create a few of them. I think one of the lodges that gives you the extra artifacts as well. Which one's that one? The Hermdale Lodge? No,
This is Greyfeared.
Greyfeared Lodge. Yeah. The Greyfeared Lodge. You can give a few of those different items to these guys as well, and throw them all in at the same time, and they'll all get to attack at the same time at the start of the combat phase.
Yeah. I mean, you can just, it's good for monster killing or hero killing, and it's also a lot of fun.
Did you guys mention earlier the tunneling about? Can you guys still tunnel?
Yeah.
Yes.
So who does that, and is it worth it taking?
It's the Runesmiter on foot. He has to be on foot. And they changed it now. You still have to be 9 inches away, but now you have to be wholly within 12 of the Runesmiter that brings you up.
Yeah.
And it is 2 drops. I always used to play it as you would spend 10 win as a drop, and then the unit he's tunneling is a drop. And then I learned that overseas that people were not doing. They just went down together. And now they've clarified that now that it would count as a drop. You drop your Runesmith, or sorry, your Runesmiter, and then you would drop your unit that he's tunneling with. So that would be 2 drops. But yeah, I still think it's worth it if you need to. It depends on the scenario. Like I think it's good to have one. My instinct is always from the previous 3.5 years is always just to tunnel 1 or 2 units because you remove them as targets. But I think it's situational now. I think you have to look at how big your armies are, because I think Fyreslayers with MSUs, multi, it's a thing again. And if you have an objective or a scenario where your objective is off to the side or maybe left alone, and you have that utility, you can move around, but you don't have to necessarily. And sometimes I would tunnel and I'm like, well, I really needed him to be on the table because I needed him to use his prayer. I needed him to give reroll wounds or cast something. And when they tunnel up, it's at the end, it's in the movement phase, so you've missed your hero phase, so you have to wait a whole another turn, or if you get double turn, too, I guess, before you can actually use his abilities again.
I think the Runesmiter and the tunneling has changed for this edition of the book. When I first started doing tunneling, I would tunnel up a 30-man block of Volkite Berserkers. I'd tunnel up 2 blocks of them on objectives in the center of the board. That was my shield wall. It was just to stop anything from coming through. I've tried switching that to do smaller units, or a unit to come up on the flank somewhere and find its way in. That idea now that it's got to be wholly within 12 inches, you're not going to pull up those big units anymore. You're going to pull up a smaller unit. Volkite Berserkers now don't have a bonus to being in a large 30-man unit. So the idea that you're going to pull up 10 of them in a spot to take an objective, a little bit more useful. So the idea that you've got a small unit to pull up, surprise somebody, always have that. What's coming? When are they coming up? How are they going to come up? There is a slight change in the tunneling rule as well. In addition to the 12-inch, there's another change. You're now, if they do not come up before the start of the 4th battle round, they're dead. So you've got 3 turns to bring them up. So it's a bit of a change. I used to delay when I had a unit, bring it up, try and get that objective. Turn 4, turn 5, you've got to have that up before then now.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked, because that was a staple in every Fyreslayer army I played, is that big block of 30 Volkites that would tunnel in the back or tunnel on the side. But it sounds like that tactic has changed a little bit, and you need to reconsider if you're going to use it, how you're going to use it. Because I think Kenny, you even said, those units that they've kind of shrunk, and they're more MSU, or they're not as big as they used to be. So,
and I did this before too. But if you just have one on your list, if you're doing a tournament or an event, I think having a Runesmiter fleet is good. But you can decide what you want to tunnel. If you're playing total commitment, you're not going to tunnel. But if you want to bring your Magmadroth up, or a Grandmaster Berserker, even, or a Doom Seeker, those are fun to bring up too. If they're not going to give you space in their back line or wherever you need to be, you can always get a 32 mil base, usually through wherever they are, because they're thinking about big units. So you can have a Grandmaster Berserker running there. I think it's worth trying. It's a really good tactic. It's worked out very well for me, at least. And I suck at rolling dice, so it's got to be great for you guys.
Yeah, and look, if you take something like a Magmadroth, and you got a command point up your sleeve, you might be able to re-roll a charge. You might be able to find a way to increase that charge range. But I think, long story short, I wanted to acknowledge that the tunneling rules have changed a little bit, especially if you haven't kind of quite picked that up yet. So nice. I think we talked heroes. Anything else you guys want to talk about with heroes before we move on to Battleline?
No, we're gonna talk about artifacts later.
Yeah, we'll go to like artifacts and prayers and command traits later. If it's okay with you guys, like I don't want you putting me in like a book of grudges and coming from my Urgold. Written down shit. I'm
Urgold on your shelf.
I'm screwed. Please donate your Urgold because these guys are coming for it. You guys have one Battleline choice technically, so standard Battleline. However, if you have a Rune Master, you get the Ulrich Hearthguard. If you have the Runefather, you've got the Hearthguard Berserkers. The generic Battleline is your Volkite Berserkers. Is that correct? Yep. Sweet. So what's your Battleline choices? What do you take? Why? How big are they? How do you kick them out? Talk to me about Battleline.
Go ahead, sir.
I used to run 90 Battleline, so I would have 3 units of 30. A big change now. So I'm looking at Volkites in small units as objective holders. The major change to all of our infantry in this book is 2 wounds per model. But that's a significant change from what we had before. So I think that the points cost made a bit of a change, but that we went up. We got more wounds for that amount of I think what you're paying for points, what you're paying for wounds is worth the points, definitely. And then the bonuses that are there, you've still got some of those things in there. It kind of matches out. But I love the Volkites in those small units. I'm still going to have 2 units of them. I'm going to choose my Runefather as my general so I can have the Hearthguard. But having a couple of units of Volkite Berserkers with their shields, supporting them with prayers to make sure they can stay and hold an objective, particularly that home objective. I don't want to give my opponent that 4 points a turn. I'm going to always have Volkites in there.
I'd say for me, I like the Hearthguard Berserkers, and I use them with the Polak, so they do the chance to do mortal wounds. So I have like a lot of those built. I have like 60 of those built. I use them because the father has to be the general to do that. I just think they still have their hair save from before out of 4-up. They do a ton of damage. They're also extremely expensive. So I feel like I build, and usually I'm doing Lords of the Lodge, so usually I will build around that. But I think with Volkites, you still have to, you still need a Battleline. If you're doing 2,000 points, you need 3. And so I think a lot of us do like 10 and 10 with Volkites, because then you have your 3 battle lines. And like you said, now they used to be my strike units. They would run in and kill things. Now they sort of sit back and hold objectives, or even chaff, depending on what it is. So I mean, I by the way, I use mine with double hammers or double axes because you get to reroll hits. And yes, it is only 3 to hit, but I will miss like all of those. So that's why I needed the double axes to hit. So if you have terrible dice rolls, you might want to try double axes so you can reroll your hits. You don't have any rend or anything, but so for the Hearthguard, though, you can build them with a pole. And what it is now is on modified roll of 6 to hit, you do 2 mortal wounds in addition to your damage. And the other one has 2 damage and a rend, but I find the chance to do mortal wounds, because we don't have a lot of mortal wound output, is very helpful for us. So that's usually where I start there.
Awesome. Jason, anything else you'd add to the Battleline discussion?
Well, the Hearthguard Berserkers are still in my because I take the Lords of the Lodge, and you've got to have Hearthguard Berserkers in there. I do take them as a battle line. The idea now, huge change. We've got a 2-inch range on the weapons as well.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. With the 32 mil bases, I mean, I'd go up against Horde of Skeletons, and they've got spears. They're throwing how many attacks at me, and even with my hair saves, they're still going to do damage. They were still getting through. They were still hurting. Now I can do the same thing back. This is the hammer unit, the Hearthguard Berserkers, and I think whichever way you kit them out, we've seen some guys on the Facebook group doing the math hammer and working out who's going to do the most wounds, who's going to do the most damage. I love the threat of mortal wounds. The idea that ever since I started playing these and put them on the table, they're like, "What? Those guys do mortal wounds? Oh no, I got to stay away from them." And so you just keep moving them up and try and do some damage. I've had them up against Flesh Eater Courts, and they've just stood there and taken a load of damage because of that hair save, and then been able to just deal back. And while they kept resurrecting stuff, bringing stuff back on the board, they just never moved through them. The idea that now I've got a 2-inch range, I'm fighting these things in 2 ranks, so I can get way more guys into combat. I can do a lot more damage output with those guys now than what I could before, and probably way better than Volkite. So that's my hammer unit. It's what I'm going to send in and try and do the damage.
And you could do. I've seen some lists. I've done this once or twice too, where I find the sweet spot at like 15 to 20 Hearthguard for the Lords of the Lodge, and then maybe taking it to 5 or 10 in place of one of the Volkites, just depending on what the mission is and what I need. If I need the mortal wound output, and then again, that's why you need a lot of heroes too with Hearthguard, is to make sure to have that 4 repair save versus a 6-up, because it's a big difference.
And another thing we haven't mentioned with the Lords of the Lodge, they've now changed the ability for Lords of the Lodge with the Hearthguard Berserkers. Now the unit just has to be wholly within 12 inches at the beginning of the combat phase, and that Hearthguard Berserker unit can be selected twice to pile in an attack in the combat phase.
And it has 2 attacks now, also in addition
to 2
to
attacks each, 2-inch range, and dealing mortal wounds, 2 mortal wounds on a natural roll of a 6 to hit.
So is it an unmodified or is it a 6?
Unmodified, yeah. Unmodified 6.
Which is massive. Like, I play Gloomspite and I've got a lot of netters, and being able to shut down abilities is awesome. But it sounds like those negatives, so those -1s, no play, straight up 6s do mortals.
Yeah, I think it's in line with the language we've been seeing since the 2nd edition, with like unmodified rolls to hit, things like that.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen some people in the community who just go with some of the old language. They don't actually look at the wording. So I just again want to call out that look at it, because that you're doing mortal wounds for free. So take advantage.
Yep, unmodified 6.
oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm drowning my monster here. I'm just trying to mute.
No, drink your monster away. You got a
Don't hear me,
beautiful cat that's been wandering around as well. It's like 6 in the morning, so you're okay.
I was planning on not using this computer, so I didn't clean. My car got totaled, so I had to take everything out of it. So there's piles of things over there, so it's messy. Sorry.
That's right. We got the pizza.
I moved house, so I'm showing you empty cabinets here that should be full of Fyreslayers.
That's amazing. It's all right. We'll have all the excuses in the world. You've been practicing and preparing and painting your new models. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about with Battleline? So, I mean, you've got 3 main choices, and I guess depending on, and I'm hearing Lords of the Lodge, Lords of the Lodge, Lords of the Lodge. So maybe this should be called the faction focused Lords of the Lodge.
No. So we only have 3 units at all. So the other one is the Orc Hearthguard, which I used to never take because they didn't have a hair save, and they just died right away. And now they're 2 wounds, and yes, there are long range shooting. And it's not super great, but it can be, depending. Shooting is really important in the game now if you want that aspect. Plus, they look amazing with those pikes. The models are awesome. But what they can do now is a bodyguard role. They can take wounds for generals or heroes around them that are on foot. So they can jump in and be like, "Look out, sir! Sacrifice myself." Oh! And then they, now that they have 2 wounds, it's a lot easier too. So now you can use them. I think Gloomspite has something like this too, right? Where you can pass off a wound to somebody right next to you.
The Necromancer in Legions can do that, but not Goblins. But like it's the same concept. You can pass on wounds from a hero.
Yeah, they can just throw themselves. No, sir. He signs my paycheck. No. You can just carry over wounds, and that's a good use for him too. I've tried it with him. I didn't. We got like into turn 3, and then the game stopped, so I didn't get to use it as much as I would have liked. But he had Stormcast, and that was definitely it was interesting to try it. I try it out, but that's if your Rune Master is general, and I think your Rune Master would be the general if you look at the artifacts and the command traits, and you're building around that. But otherwise, yeah, they're just the third unit because we only have 3.
So if I'm building an army and I've got my 3 battle line choices, I'm generic. I'm not restricted like Lords of the Lodge. Am I going Volkites? Am I going Berserkers? Am I going Ulrich Hearthguard? Am I going large units, small units? Like, what's the elevator pitch for battle line?
I would say if you're probably going to make your general the Runefather, so at least 1 unit of Hearthguard, which become battle line, maybe 2, and then the remainder Volkites, and probably small units of 10, maybe 20, but probably 10.
So at least 1 unit of Berserkers, 2 Volkites, approximately?
Yeah, at least, and you could always swap 1 Volkite with Hearthguard if you like.
And you
But
said
need
Berserkers about 15 to 20 kind of in size.
I think a lot of people found this. I mean, I don't know if Jason, you agree, but they kind of found that the sweet spot is around 15 to 20. The unit of 30 can be devastating if you get it out there, and it's super threatening. It's 600 points with the massive regiment discount. But as you're buying models for new to the army, you're buying boxes, you're getting built up. 15 or 20 might be where you are for a bit before you can get more.
Yeah, I built mine up pretty slow. I started with 15, and I got 15 of each of the weapon loadouts. I wished I hadn't done that because then I wanted 30 with just 1 weapon loadout. So Games Workshop got my money again. It's been I think I would go 30. I think I'm still looking at doing 30 Hearthguard Berserkers. That's a must-have. I think if I'm going my Vostag Lodge, that's what I want. I want to run up 30 Hearthguard Berserkers, and I'm going to run up the heroes in them because I've got my Lords of the Lodge, so I'm going to keep them all together and move them up. Had a lot of success because the keeping Holy Within for the Lords of the Lodge ability is now any of the heroes. So between that, you've got 3 heroes to help get them Holy Within. Really improves your chances of getting them to do that second pile-in attack. But I think if I'm going Lofnir Lodge, I'm looking at 3 units of 10 Volkite Berserkers because I'm going to have 4 or 5 Magmadroths in that list. So it's going to completely change how I do the loadout. So it starts again back to what's your lodge, what do you want to do, what's your play style, and then you're going to choose around that. I don't know. Auric Hearthguard, I've never selected them as a battle line. They've just never come up that way. But I love that idea that for 120 points, you've got 10 more wounds to add to your heroes. That idea now, I want to see how I can fit that in. And I've run a few different list combinations to try and do that. I've got to get myself now. I've moved up here, get some games in and try out some of those combinations as well, see how they work.
And if someone's tried that out, like put it in the chat. I think and go to the Fyreslayer group. I'm sure I'll grab the link of the guys pretty soon, and I'll put it on the show notes so you can join them if you aren't already on the group. But I think love to hear people's experience with some of this crazy list tech.
Yeah, I think with the Vostar, the Lodge as well, that having the unit of 30 Hearthguard, that's probably the best place. I think the best fit. Maybe Hermdar as well too, but I mean that blob going up, like you said, you can just have one of the 3 heroes on the 12. They have 2 attacks now, and they're going to fight twice. I mean, it is super devastating. So I think that's probably one of the best fits is what you're doing right now with your list.
So correct me if I'm wrong. We've actually gone through all the units. We've gone through your heroes.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. So we've talked to all the unit choices. Because obviously you have no independent behemoths. They all are leader behemoths. And we've kind of gone through the Doomseeker and the Grimwrath. So we've gone through our hero choices. One thing I wanted to ask about was the Battle Forge, which is your piece of scenery. Where do you guys deploy it? Like what's the list tech and the strategy behind where you deploy that, and what's the rationale?
Well, you have to set it within 6 inches of one of the priests. And it's a little bit different than other terrain pieces. You don't put it down before you put your army down. You put it down after you've set up your army and deployed, but before the game starts. So I think I've had some problems with this too, with putting it somewhere. It's not huge, but I mean, it's a little bit smaller than you might think, but it's still a significant footprint. And it can't be within an inch of terrain, like a lot of these. So you have to have it within 6, but not bottleneck yourself as you move out around it. And so, I mean, I would not really. I've tried behind me once, and I like it better in front because I'm going to move up and get around it, and that way I can still move forward and still be within 6 of it. So I tend to, I don't know what you do here, but I tend to put it usually up forward a little bit of a diagonal, and then within 6 of whatever usually Rune Master or whatever priest is over there in that area where it's going down. So just so I can have something, like if we're doing like Knife to the Heart or something, it's going to be a little more in a corner. But if I'm going forward, then it's going to be kind of up and left if we're doing one of those scenarios. So I mean, that's what I do with mine, is I'm going to move forward and I still want to be within 6 inches, so I got to go around it. I don't know. How do you use yours?
It's a big thing about bottlenecking. So if I've got 30 Hearthguard Berserkers, I've got to move them across the board. So if I'm going to create a bottleneck for myself, that's a huge issue. I played against the Gloomspite list at CanCon this year. They bottlenecked me with their scenery. I could not get through. I couldn't get past. I couldn't get to that. It was the sudden death objective to try and get behind them, and there was just no way around it. I couldn't get my units, 32 mil bases, I couldn't get them through. So you've got to create space. How do you do that with putting the scenery down? I think it's working out where we're going to have that to the side, kind of make sure we're around the space to allow your units to get through, which is a challenge as well, because your abilities with your priests are wholly within. So you're aiming at, you're trying to cast this prayer to support your unit, but that unit's got to be wholly within that range as well, and your priest has to be then close enough to the Fireforge. So you can't set it too far away. I think it's still, for me, central. I still want to have it near the middle, but I've got to look at making sure I've got room for my units to get around it.
So that's, yeah. So I guess what I wanted to hear is that you can play it offensively, defensively. You're going to bottleneck yourself potentially. So think about where your hammers are going to go. So if you're using your Volkite Berserkers, you don't want to slow them down or make them too many go around. But at the same time, you want to have a good distance so that your priests are able to cast their prayers and gain those benefits and not be too far away. So I think it's something to consider about. I guess people are still kind of learning where to put their battle forge.
Now,
and if you want delicious pizza too, even you have to be in a good spot.
Yeah.
And out of curiosity, I need to know: are you guys pineapple people or no pineapple on your pizzas? Like where do we stand on this point? Just really quickly.
Pineapple pieces, not pineapple chunks. They're too big. Not crushed pineapple. Pineapple pieces.
All right, so you're a pro pineapple man on your Hearthguard pizza oven.
Yep.
Battleforge. And Kenny?
I'm sorry, I have to take a hard stance against.
No, this is good. This is good. I'm not gonna get too much hate mail. They're either gonna be pro Kenny or pro Jason. But I'm a pro pizza man, and especially with pineapple. Cool. This is super weird. Let's quickly move on. When it comes to customizing your army, so we've kind of built a list, you've thought about the lodge, you've kind of built around it, you've found some synergies behind units, and you got some good stuff. Now, when you're kitting out things like your command traits and your artifacts, are you finding a lot of these are dictated to you by your lodge, or are there ones that stand out for you? Like how does that work for Fyreslayers?
So when we take a lodge, you've got to take the command ability. You have to take the command ability that comes with your lodge, and then your first artifact has to be the one that's from your lodge list as well. If you've got yourself a War Scroll battalion, you've got an extra couple of artifacts you can take there. So it is limiting in some ways. It appears to be that way, but But they've themed them around the lodge. So if you are playing that lodge for the specific mode of play, then you're getting the stuff that's going to help that mode of play anyway. So it's pretty good from what I've seen and how I'm using it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you can put the artifact you have to take with the lodge as like, stuff people call it like a tax. I don't know about that, but I mean, it's something you have to take. So it doesn't have to always be your general. But I think a lot of people want the Null City icon. It's the one that on a 4-up ignores the effects of a spell or mortal spell or endless spell. So that one's really popular. But I think there's so many options in here, ways to build, that a lot of times you're going to want a second one or another choice from here. So you either don't do one of these 4 lodges and you have the freedom to create what you want, or if you're doing a lodge or a battalion with one of these, then you do at least one. And be able to get an extra artifact in here, because there's some great stuff. And if you're, we can ally with wizards from Stormcast, but we don't have wizards, and the only way to get Unbinding is through a hero, through having like a trait or an artifact.
So maybe two things here. First off, do you see many viable list builds? And again, we're talking here about competitive guys. So if you are someone who's here for narrative or open play, or you're just starting, like this is about your hobby, you pick what you want to pick. But for someone who's a bit more competitive, do you see a world where you're not taking one of the 4 lodges? Is that is there enough value in picking your own command traits and good stuff? Or are the lodges just amazing?
The lodges are pretty good. I think if you're doing it without a lodge, really shines is when you're doing 1,000 points or maybe even 15, like smaller size game, because the battalions are expensive and you sometimes don't have those points to spend on them. But I think the lodges are really good, and I think you're going to be seeing these around for a while. But there are, like, I asked a viable list. There are a lot of viable lists. There's so much you can do with this book now. It's so expensive. You have to do that. It's kind of, you can't mix like that and that and that. And really, it's quantity and quality. I feel like, and I feel like this is what's been said on the groups and with people in general. It's like you have to kind of commit to what you want to do because it's so expensive now. Point wise, not model wise, although that's insanely cheap. They came out with the Star Collecting box that was half its price. Came out after I already had all that, like 3 of those, so I had already spent the money. But if you're getting into it now, it's a lot less expensive to buy the models, and then it's a lot more expensive to actually use them as points in your army for match play. But yeah, I think there are a lot of lists.
The second part, you mentioned wizards and allies. So you guys ally with Dispossessed, Ironwield Arsenal, Kharadron Overlords, and Stormcast. Do you guys dip into your ally pool? Are you an army that just doesn't have enough points because you're spending it all inherently? And if you were going to go into the ally pool, what kind of things do you look for, or what kind of stands out from you from your ally section?
Kind of feels like the Stormcast are like the diversity hire. You got all the dwarves and then them. So me personally, I like to be I guess like a purist. I've been counting my games with solo Fyreslayers. I like to do it without. If you need magic or if you need long range shooting, then you're going to have to ally in. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I see people bringing in some of the overlords, like Endrinringer sometimes, which here some long distance shooting, a Knight and Cantor in some format to be able to cast and unbind, or maybe bring a ballista as well. It's something that I don't like to do, but I think there's nothing wrong with it. And sometimes the lists that win events, at least over in the States, you'll see will come attached with a few allies with it, maybe one or 2 units of allies.
Yeah, I've been running for the last year. I did solo Fyreslayers the first 2 years and got to a point of going, the 19 Cantor came out last year, and for the points, to have the unbind options, to be able to deal with the endless spells that were on the table, that was it had to be my army. I put it on the Dias Arcanum, so it had a 12-inch fly move as well, just move it around the board wherever I needed, just nice. Because I had the points at the end of it. So. But that wasn't included always in my list. I even added a navigator from Kharadron Overlords in the list. So if you don't have the extra artifacts by having War Scroll battalions, you can add in those type of unbinding characters, heroes into your list. They're good ally options to do in there. I think they're still there, but I think the number of options we have now to go around building your list with the unbinding options in there, like the Runemaster can have it's an Ash Cloud rune, so they can unbind 2 spells in a turn. That's a huge change. Fyreslayers did not have that in their last release. No matter what we saw in the last General's Handbooks, there was just no unbind options really there.
Yeah, I think for me, if I was building a Fyreslayer army, and I'm thinking about some of the things that you guys point out as weaknesses. So if I'm thinking about shooting, especially like long range shooting, your Ironwield is going to give you the Hellstorm rocket battery, which has it's like unlimited line of sight. It's like a 36-inch range, but it's got doesn't have in fact line of sight. You've got your Stormcast with the ballista. potentially the Knight of Zeros, allowing you to re-roll ones within a bubble, could be quite powerful when combining with some of the Berserkers.
It is. I've used that before a few times.
How'd you find it?
It's a crutch, a much needed crutch, but yeah, it definitely pulled through.
I mean, it's like 100, 120 points. He's got like a once per game, like D6 mortal wounds to like a little grenade. So, but from what I'm hearing, if Kenny, you're taking like 5 to 7 heroes, and some of your unit choices are quite expensive. I do question if you're going to have enough points, especially to include a formation to get an ally.
Yeah, I think the battalions are definitely worth it. Yeah, I mean, I think I know we're going to go into this, but I think all 3 of them. I'm not going to talk about the mega battalion, but I think all 3 of them are good and have their place. But yeah, finding the points to bring in an ally is difficult. So you have to decide what is the function. Like, what am I missing? Or right? I mean, if you're just doing open play narrative, yeah, like, oh, this guy's kind of, I'll bring him in. Of course, the rules are different then. But if you want to bring in an ally to fill that one of those gaps, then you have to decide what that is and what's the best way, and usually the cheapest way, unfortunately, to do that.
And obviously, if you're someone who's concerned about sorcery and endless spells, then you want to probably be getting a Stormcast Wizard, something like that. But you were talking about battalions, and you've got 4 battalions plus the Mega Battalion, or is it 3 battalions? You guys have talked Lords of the Lodge a lot. Let's start with Lords of the Lodge, and then the others. So, Lords of the Lodge, awesome. Why is it awesome?
Okay, you
guys have mentioned it like 10 times already, and even since like the old book, Lords of the Lodge was definitely one of those like, or not must have, but definitely a strong option.
Well, it doesn't have the option like it used to be able to win a priority or have a chance to get a bonus of priority. But now having the unit Hearthguard Berserkers are so devastating and still so tanky, even tankier now. 2 wounds, 2 inch reach, 2 attacks. That these guys, the ability to let them activate twice and go again. And if you're taking one of the lodges that like Harmguard, you get to fight once before the first unit's picked. Then you could fight with them and then fight again with them as their second activation would be your first activation in your normal combat phase. But even if you don't, I mean, you can throw them, you can plug them in anywhere, and they're super devastating. And their characters are no longer attacks. Like the Battlesmith, you want close to there. The Runemaster is a priest, you want him close, and he can mark the enemy and try. And if you get some 6s, you can mark them to be debuffed essentially, or you're buffing your other army against them. So you want all these characters and these models, and then you want to give them this amazing. It's 140 points, I think, this battalion. So
140, yeah. Lords, Warrior Kinband, they're 140, yeah.
Yeah, this is. I think they're all decent now, but this one is just what I kind of build around because I love the models, I love the way it looks, and I like the way it plays.
Yeah, I think a couple of General's Handbooks ago, it was 120 points for it. It's worth 140 points. You add this in, so you're looking at the Hearthguard Berserkers and how much their points are right now. And like Kenny's saying, you're doing 15 or 20 Hearthguard Berserkers in there. You're dishing a whole lot of damage by having Lords of the Lodge Battalion. So it is. I've always run it. I haven't. I've tried a couple other things added to it, but I've never dropped that one from my tournament list.
Yeah, I think for a tournament list, this is probably the best.
Yeah,
and we also see that everywhere too.
Yeah, it is quite popular. Old book and new book. What about the others? Are the others worth taking or not so?
Have you tried Warrior Kinband yet?
I haven't tried the Warrior Kinband yet. They did release an FAQ, something about the Warrior Kinband to make sure. I think it was actually in the designer's commentary, because there was this question about how often you use this. So the Warrior Kinband gives you, I don't think I mentioned it before, the Volkite Berserkers. So they used to have the hair save. They got better when they were larger. Now they just have a once per battle. You can choose at the beginning of the combat phase that for that entire phase, when they're wounded, instead of removing them, they get to pile in an attack immediately. So they get to do their attack whether they're dying or not. You now get to do that if you use the Warrior Kinband. One of those units can can do that twice in a game. So I think if you're running a larger Volkite unit, and of course with this list, if you've got 3 Volkite units, you're running Rune Sons, maybe your Rune Sons your general, maybe you've gone with something alternate to the Runefather as your general. It gives you some flexibility around what to do, because if you've got a unit of 20, 30 Volkites, you can do that twice. That's going to be a bonus. I haven't tried it, and I'm not really, it's probably not going to be in my list. I'm making a big change to go fewer model count for the list now. So
yeah, the Volkites have to die to pile in an attack.
Yeah.
Unless that's once they're slain, they can pile an attack, and it's a decent ability. But I mean, you kind of build your army around Volkites if you're using this, or if you're trying to make it as cheap as possible with this battalion. It's like 10, 10, and 10, and the Sun on foot, just because you want another artifact, and that's a way to go too. But I think this one has a place. I haven't found it yet. I haven't found like what the purpose is, and I'm trying all the new styles still. But this one, I mean, it jumps out to me as like if you're doing a chaff, or you're trying to slow down somebody, or you need bodies out on objectives, then you could have this. But I think it's a secondary choice. Lords of the Lodge. It used to have an ability to help your throwing axes, and it doesn't anymore. So, I just think it's Lords of the Lodge is number 1 for me, and this is not number 1.
And how about the Forge Brethren? Is that also a not number 1? Because that's got a nice little ability that lets you pick a unit in the enemy hero phase that gives +1 save to your unit, which is kind of cool.
And that's how you can get a 2-up with a ignore 1 rend if you got that on the right turn. That's going to happen. Yeah.
And then you can reroll wounds if you have like the fence next to you, the wall. I think it's not as big for me because you already have so many things now that can improve your save, that can add 1 to your save. So I don't see it as useful. But I think if you're going to, again, if you're taking, so these are all built around. We only have 3 units, right? So each is built around one of those units. So whether if you have Volkites, you go this. If you have Hearthguard, you may want to give them this because it gives them something cool extra to do. But they're protectors. So if you have Hearthguard in there, if you have, it was three units, right? Or Orc Hearthguard, then they're going to be there jumping and taking wounds. Maybe you have 3 units of 5, then they are essentially like human shields or small human shields, and then you take it with the battalion because you want the extra artifact and command point out of it. So I mean, it's something you can do too. I don't think it's one that you would bolster up with 3 large units of Orc Hearthguard, unless you wanted to do a shooting army, and then even then, now they used to be 15, now they're 18 inch range, so it's a little bit better. But I guess it depends. If you want to try and do a gun line out of Fyreslayers, then you can do that definitely.
So I'm hearing Lords of the Lodge is a clear winner.
Yes.
The other 2 are good. Definitely wouldn't beat out Lords of the Lodge. However, if you were building your army around Volkite Berserkers or not Volkite, whatever your 3 battle line choices are going to be, there's a battalion that is for it, depending on if you like the Auric Hearthguard. So there's something for you. But Lords of the Lodge, clear number 1 choice.
Yes.
I was just looking at Lofnir Lodge because that is about all the Magmadroths. You've still got to have 3 battle line. If you're looking at putting 3 battle line, that's one of your cheapest options. Put in those 3 Volkites and add in the Warrior Kinband. Not a bad way to go to add into your list that way. So I'd potentially do it there, but yeah, Lords of the Lodge all the way.
Yeah, I think that's been consistent for the last couple of years. So
yeah,
no, it's good to see that it's still the one and makes it quite clean. That's Battleline done. Big tick. We've gone through heroes, Battleline. We've gone through battalions and allies and behemoths, and like this is a big tick. We're doing well. If I was not going to take a lodge, so I'm going to be ballsy. I'm going to build my own kind of lodge. I'm going to like make my own little narrative. What command traits and artifacts really stand out for you? And I mention artifacts because often the first artifact is dictated for us via the lodge. So let's start with command traits for Fyreslayers. Is there any ones that stand out for you, and why do they stand out? And you have a lot. You've got some for the Runefathers. You've got some for the Rune Masters. So we don't have to go through everyone, but certainly is there ones that stand out from you from either side?
Sorry, I'm paging over there right now.
Me too.
So I'll start, and like Honor of the Ancestors is not a bad one from the Runefather, because it means that you don't have to take Battle Shock within 12 of the general. So that's a nice clean one.
That's the same as the standard, what everybody would have run, what most people ran in the old Fyreslayers list. It was just, you've got to get up there. You've got to make sure you keep your first card Berserkers. If they start to take damage, you've got to keep them up front. Was a standard for me before. I've looked at it and I've wondered about whether or not I would go with that. I've tried Blood of the Berserker. The idea that once per battle, you can just do some more hurt. The idea now that with a Auric Runefather, you're hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. Big change to that. It used to be hitting on 4s with 3 attacks, and so often I'd throw that axe down and there'd be nothing to come through. The idea that you can modify that and change that and buff it, that's a big one for me in a choice that I do. That'd be if I'm looking lofty style. If I'm putting Magmadroth in, doing something like that, a good one to throw in there.
Yeah, I would like to try it too, with some combination of allowing, if you can buff the guy up to even hit on maybe 2s or reroll wounds or something. Once you have like the Runesmiter bless them to reroll wounds, then that could be really good too. I think Berserk Fury is a lot of fun. And I guess you can use it with Grimwrath Berserkers too if you want. Just ask your TO how he would rule that. He or she would rule that going into it.
I imagine Fury of the Fyreslayer, which gives you +1 to the charge roll, could be quite useful as well.
Yeah, that'd be the other one, I think, because any little bit of movement now. Now the horns, the Volkite horns, like give you, I think it's an extra inch when you're doing your
charge roll.
Yeah, so I mean, it's, you have little bits and pieces here that help your little stubby 4-inch legs get across the table, and sometimes you need to hit, you need to make that big charge. So anything that can help you is good. So this one, and you're going to be in bubbles anyway, so I think this one is also a good one.
Anything from the Rune Master or Runesmiter option?
Yeah, Wisdom and Authority, I think, is one I see a lot. When I thought about it, at the start of the battle round, the first battle round, you receive an additional D3 command points. So if you don't have a battalion, or you do, but if you need, if you have a lodge, say maybe you need a few command points because you want to get in and activate the different command abilities and have a Hearthguard over here or a Volkite or both, fight first in the phase. Or one of the other command abilities. Then this is probably good to have you because maybe you didn't have room to build extra command points in your army or your battalion, and then this way you can start off with the D3 additional, so you get your 1 and then an extra D3. So that's awesome. You might need those in the bank.
Yeah, there's so many good command abilities. Being able to have the extra command points is a great bonus to start. Yeah, I'd say the same.
Yeah. The other two that stand out for me is Ashbeard, which lets you your general know 2 prayers from a blessing table, or the Master Priest, which once per battle lets you use one of your activated Urgol, the one of the runes, which is interesting.
Yeah, they did just clarify in the designer's commentary about the Ashbeard rune. So knowing 2 prayers and casting 2 prayers, different thing. So you know 2, but can still only do 1 per turn.
Which is still not too bad, like having 2 spells up, prayers up your sleeve, but that does kind of bring it down a little bit. Yeah. I was thinking like a double caster would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Damn it.
And that's what I'd originally thought, yeah.
Yeah, we've all picked the same 3 like each time. It's just kind of funny.
Maybe I'm a Fyreslayer. Maybe it's the beard. Maybe I'm like,
Maybe you're
not long enough yet. Get a little longer.
I'm only a son. I'm a rune son or a runeling.
Fyreslayer curious. We'll call you.
Good lord. Artifacts. Let's talk artifacts. Which artifacts do you like, or are they garbage and you go to malign sorcery?
They're not garbage. I mean, if we're doing the fathers and sons, the magnetized runes, where you get to add 2 to your charge rolls. I mean, that's really good on the bearer. It's not a bubble, though, unfortunately. The Obsidian Wilhelm, I think, is what I see. I've used this a couple times, too, in my smaller 1,000-point games for a local campaign we're doing here. the start of your phase, you roll one on a fork, you get an extra command point. So that's not bad.
Yeah, I love the Drake Slayer.
Yeah, if it works.
If it works. Typical thing, bit of the way I play. When I've got my general near somebody else's general, just far enough, but I could throw a throwing axe at him. I just throw a throwing axe at him just for a, hey, I'm here. Throw it past their nose, draw their attention. Actually do some damage. That would be cool.
Yeah, if you play in a tournament, I don't know what it's like in different countries, but a lot of tournaments here, especially in the Midwest of the States, are Warhammer is usually attached to a charity, and you can usually buy a charity reroll. So you spend usually $20, you donate, and you get a die, and you get to reroll one thing, maybe not priority, but one thing per game. And I'm just thinking, like, that's what I would do. I would pick this one, and I get this one reroll, and I would use it just for this.
Yeah.
I love that. We don't have, well, not in a big tournament, but that sounds like a cool idea. One that I like that I don't know, you guys can like tell me if I'm just a math hammer enthusiast or there's actually legs on this, is I like the magnetized runes, which gives me +2 to my charge roll.
Mhm.
So if I put that on, let's say I don't know, Runefather on a Magmadroth, and I tunneled him up with the Runesmiter, whoever
That's fine.
tunnels.
That's right.
The tunnel man, look at me, I'm learning. Like that all of a sudden turns a 9-inch charge into a 7, which is statistically 50-50. I'll have a command point, I can re-roll it. I don't know. Is there legs in that?
Yeah,
Or am I just some crazy destruction player?
No, that's the first one I picked. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good one too. And that's a good place to use it if you're getting tunneled up. Not that you have to be, you can use it either way, but yeah. Or if you need to charge in, so you're maybe your units are ahead of you, but you need to charge in and get your bubble synergy going on, then you can do that. You have a better chance of getting up there, propelling yourself forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of times trying to get that play so you've got your unit not running out of range. I've had numerous times as I was learning the list, my units, as soon as we got to version 2 of Age of Sigmar, a lot of that wholly within bubble started happening and trying to make sure the units didn't run out of range for the buffs. And that's huge to be able to have that option to get your hero in there. I don't know how many times you charge in. I charged in my hero. I charged in my general at CanCon against the Gloomspite Gits, and I just lost him because he charged in and then the unit failed completely and should never have failed. So I got him out of range for buffing anybody, and he couldn't even pass off any wounds anymore. So he was done. Troll Hag got him.
Troll Hag, very nice.
Any other artifacts? I'm looking at the Drake Slayer, and it is super, super unlikely to happen. But if it happened, it would be effing incredible. So
Yeah.
if you're within 6 of a monster, you roll a dice on a 6, the monster takes 3d6 wounds. But
yeah, look, I tend to take the Axe of Grimnir. I said the Drake Slayer earlier because I love that idea of being able to throw an axe at something and kill it. But having the Axe of Grimnir, when we're looking at the Runefather right now, the Runefather is hitting on 3s, winning on 3s. So let's make that hit on 2s. You can do damage, dish out damage with that guy. I really like that kind of a mix to it. So that's a fit out typical of what I used to do with my Runefather as well. If I expected him to be in combat. And now I think the Runefather is better in combat than he used to be. So you're aiming to get him in there, especially Runefather and Magmadroth. You want him in there doing some damage, hit a big unit, and wreck them.
what about the artifacts of Wrath and Doom? Do we like any of those?
I don't like them all. I think the one that I've seen most popular is to add 1 to your save, just to make you a bit durable, because you're already hitting on 3s. Now, I mean, it might be the round that you die that you want to use the Rune of Blazing Fury, so you can, if you're gonna die and pile in again, then that can help. But I think the one I've seen consistently is to add 1 to your save because you just get a bit more survivable. And have you tried any of these on Grimwrath Berserker?
No, I haven't tried any yet. I like the Beast Slayer. I will. So the Grimwrath Berserker has changed slightly so you used to get +1 to the hair save for every enemy unit within 3 inches. Now it's +1 to the hair save only for any unit that's there. So it can only get a 5-up hair save. We used to get it to a 2-up or a 3-up, depending on where you got it. So now that effectiveness to throw it in, I want to throw it in against a monster. I want to get it in and do some damage. Something like the Beast Slayer is probably what I'd be looking at putting on there. Though I still love the, probably for my Grimwrath, I love having the Thermal Rider Cloak just fly in, get over the lines, get to those characters, because I've got to hit the heroes with him. He's a hero killer. He's not really about going in and doing damage to units as much anymore. That idea of getting that second attack. You used to play the Grimwrath, throw the first round of attacks against the easy to kill unit, try and do as many wounds as possible, because then you roll under the number of wounds you've created, and he gets to attack immediately again. Now that's changed completely as well, so he's attacking when he dies. It's a big change. So I'd want to put something in that'd just deal more damage.
Did you say you were modeling a Grimwrath with the cloak?
I
did
have
that
him.
too. Nice.
He's right here.
Nice. I'm in the midst of making different Grimwraths with different items, doing some green stuffing and some converting.
Artifacts of Forge Temple.
Oh, let's see. We already mentioned one of them earlier, the Ash Cloud Rune.
Ash Cloud Rune, yeah.
Let's attempt to unbind 2 spells in the enemy hero phase. Same manner as a wizard. Do you got any that you like here?
Well, the Ash Cloud Rune is my #1 pick. It's why I feel like I can go solo Fyreslayers again for my next tournament. Instead of bringing in the allies, I don't have to look at something else that's going to have that unbind option, especially to have 2 unbinds. So that's been clearly the #1 for me. The idea for a Droth Helm, if I'm going with a Magmadroth list, re-rolling for attacks made with Claws and Horns by Magmadroths that are within 6 inches. So if you've got a Magmadroth list, throw this one onto your Runesmiter on Magmadroth. It's an automatic. It doesn't cost you any command points. You're going to start to do more damage with those Magmadroths. Even if one of the Magmadroths is taking damage, its attack's not as effective. You've still got the others next to it. You're doing re-rolls with all of them within that range. Certainly doable.
Absolutely.
You've picked my 2 favorites, especially with the if you're taking more than one Magmadroth. I think that last artifact's awesome, but I think the Ash Cloud Rune, as you got the rune, as you guys have said, allows you not to dip into your ally pool to get that Stormcast wizard to kind of unbind. So I really like that one.
And if I'm not running a lodge, so if I'm running my own lodge, then that might be something I'm going to run in that ally, put in the Knight Incantor, and I'm going to skip the Ash Cloud Rune, and I'm going to go with the Droth Helm if I'm running Magmadroth. So that's that option you got to play around with once you put allies in, if you're going to deal with it a little differently. I'm leaning towards that solo Fyreslayers again. I want to get back to the roots of my list building and get back to those Magmadroths on my list.
Yes, sir. Yes, you can.
I love it. Keep it clean. Icons of Grimnir. Do we like any of the Battlesmith artifacts of power?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
All of them? Some of them? None of them? Which one's the ones that are standing out for you guys?
Well, all of them, but the Null City icon is the one I think you see most. Although I do like a Graveyard list that has the Null City and a Grimnir's Condemnation together, or icon. So Null City is the one that each time a friendly Fyreslayer unit wholly within 12 inches of the bear is affected by a spell or an endless spell, you can roll a dice. If you just want a 4-up, you can ignore the effects of that spell or endless spell on that unit. So, like from the Skaven Warp Storms to an Arcane Bolt, there's a lot of utility. And you're going to have a lot of area effect spells, and you're going to be around probably units and heroes as well. So having a chance to roll 4-up each time to ignore a spell or endless spell's effect is pretty nice.
There's a lot of magic and a lot of endless spells being thrown around right now, so I think that is an awesome call out. Jason, anything from yourself?
Icon of the Ancestors, depending on how your play style is. So if you're taking that list that you want to move up fast, you want to get everything in combat, you want to protect your Battlesmith, you don't want him right up in the front line, then that one can give you that extra bit of range on how you can give the +1 save roll to a unit. That's significant. if you want to do that. But again, it's not anything different. It's just adding to the buff that you're already going to give to your unit. So you're just adding the range that you can do that. So play style. If you've got a play style that is push everything up but keep your heroes back, protect them a little, that's going to give you a bit of room to move on that. Particularly if you're finding your units are running out of range of the buffs as well.
Yeah.
What about our Magmadroth traits?
I love them.
I have two that I really like, but I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Firstly, I love the Magmadroth race. The traits are listed as you've got the young bloods, you've got the adults, you've got the ancients. Like I love that thematic play, that narrative. So I have painted my Magmadroths as young bloods, as adults, and as ancients. So I'm going to choose from those lists when I do them. I don't have to. I know I don't have to, and I know strategically I probably don't have to, but I'm going to do that anyway. I love the flame scale young blood. The idea of actually charging in and doing damage. I've watched it with. That goes back to my old dwarf days in fantasy. My unit sitting there, and I get charged by chariots. I get charged by all these different things that do charge damage all the time, and I'd lose so many guys to charge damage. I just want to be able to charge something and hurt them, and that's for me. That's a got to be in my list.
Nice. I mean, I like the Cold Hard Ancient, the -1 to Ren. So if you're getting hit, the Ren you're getting hit by is worsened by 1 down to a 0. So that's, because you want the heroes up there usually to survive, be pretty durable. They have 2 extra wounds now; they're 14 wounds, but still, I mean, then you get hit with certain attacks. It's like, even if it's like a Ren 2 thing, moving down to Ren 1 because you get so many pluses to your save that through the characters around you, it just makes you survive a bit longer.
Yeah, love it. I really like the Fire Claw Adult, which allows you to, what is it? If the unmodified wound roll is a 6, it has a rend characteristic of -3. So not a lot of rend -3 in the game, but knowing that you're just going to chew through armor, I like that.
Yeah. Take that, zombie dragon or terror guys.
That's it. There's a lot of 4 up. Boom, no save, brother. You -3.
Well, this is why I want to run a Lofnir Lodge and have 5 Magmadroths, because with the Lofnir Lodge you get a trait for every Magmadroth in your list, so you don't have to, like, I'm choosing 5 out of 6. It's which one I want.
You're picking 5 because of 2,500 points.
I'm going to see. I've got to work that out, what we can get to. That's 2,500 points at Sydney GT. I'm thinking.
Just to clarify, we're not talking 5. Like I just want to clarify, because some people might be thinking, how are you getting 5 behemoths in a list?
Yeah.
And it's because we're talking about 2,500 points, not 2,000.
No, this is a 2,000 point list.
What?
Lofnir Lodge. That's one of their. That's their ability for the lodge, is you get to have 1 additional behemoth in your list, so you can go up to 5. Yeah.
You guys are like you Grizzlegore for order.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, I mean, they all 3 Magmadroths, but that's all you can take anyway, so.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Oh, that's great. You got some prayers. Man, you guys have so many cool stuff to choose from. Prayers. What are the prayers that stand out for your armies?
I mean, I guess the ones I've used the most, and I see a lot too, is there's Prayer of Ash.
Yep.
So you get to add an extra save at 1 of save rolls. There's Ember Storm, which lets you, Volkites or Hearthguard Berserkers, the ones that are doing the damage, have a chance to run and charge, which, it's good for little legs. And then I also see Searing Heat. I've used that one a few times, and I've had that used against me. And that's where you can tag it with 18 inches to -1 to hit. So then you can use that conjunction with like Hermdar to be hit with -1 to wounds, so you can make it all that shooting very difficult to come at you. But they're just different survivability. I mean, I think all of these, build it close if you had a Magmadroth heavy list, but I think they're all pretty good. I just think those are probably the 3 that I have used the most and see around the most.
Yeah, I think I'm because I'm running Frostdark Lodge. The Ember Storm is not as necessary for me because I've got that ability within the lodge. But the Prayer of Ash is definitely in. I think everybody I've seen has made sure at least one of their priests knows the Prayer of Ash. That's your +1 your save. stack that on with your Runesmiter on Magmadroth ability, you'll get yourself down to a 2-up or 3-up armor save on 1 unit for 1 turn. Great potential with it. Searing Heat is the other. So looking at subtracting 1 from hit rolls. So again, that idea that you've got your unit in, you've got to keep them there. This is when I was looking at where Fyreslayers were listed a few months ago. When I was at CanCon, the armies I could not beat were the debuff armies. So I come up against the debuff list, and I just could not break through. They were breaking down my units. My hair saves were what I was having to rely upon instead of re-rolling saves. And to actually now have debuff within a list in Fyreslayers, it's a bit of getting to play around with that. I'll be able to do some of those things to units that might normally not, that'll have that same effect as to what I've had with this before. You take away somebody's ability by changing their attacking. Give them -1 to hit. That's incredible when you're talking about changes to your Volkites. If you don't want to lose them all as quickly, I'd be using that one. So those are the 2. Prayer of Ash, Searing Heat for me are the 2 that I'm looking at using in my list more often.
Very good.
Great. And finally, when it comes to list customization is prayers, specifically your endless spell type prayers, which are the Magmic invocations.
Yeah.
But we're calling them endless spells. Like I'm not remembering judgments for Khorne and Fyreslayer. That you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Don't hate me, guys. Please don't. No negative comments. But you've got 3 options, and they're quite well pointed. Like your most expensive 60, your cheapest is 40. What do you like from your Magmic invocations? Do we like any of them?
I like all 3. I like the bidet is the one I probably use the most.
And that is just for layman's terms. That is the
that's the Zargron Flame Spitter. Sorry, sorry everybody.
Just in case people like they go to like War Scroll Builder and like, where is this bidet? Like, what is going on? Like
the Zargron Flame Spitter. So once it's up, then you have a 24-inch range shooting attack. It's great. I mean, you do you roll 12 dice, and for each 6-up, it's a mortal wound. And then if the unit has 10 or more, it's a 5-up, and 20 or more, it's a 4-up. So it's, especially against horde busters or things like that, I mean, you could really throw it in and do a ton of damage. And this one is excellent. I like this one on the wall together, but this one is awesome for the long range shooting that we don't have. Do you use it a lot?
Yeah, looking back at the weakness in the list of shooting, allying in something to shoot, no need to do that. If you can look at something like this, that'll be able to do that type of shooting attack. And this is mortal wounds. It's not. There's no saves to this. So that's been the #1 pick that I've seen. I'm keen on the Molten Infernoth. The idea that I can actually send something up there. It's a bit of a blocker. It fits in like a monster in that space. Chances are it's going to stay around for a while. You get to use that again. The idea that you can actually target something specific, because you go in and it's against any unit that it's within 3 inches of. You then throw, what is it? I forgot how many dice. The 12 dice for each unit within 3. So you can actually go up and you can hit multiple units in that space. So if you get it in against multiple heroes, you're rolling 12 dice against each hero, and on a 6, you're dealing a mortal wound against those heroes. So that's to me, that's decent. But again, I haven't played it that much, so I've got to work out where it's going to go. Can I get it in? It's a large base size to fit in. It doesn't fly over anything. So you've got to work its way around to get in amongst those heroes. So that's my preferred. I haven't tried the firewall yet. So that's, have you tried that one, Kenny?
Yeah, he's on.
Yes, I was reaching for my mute button. Like it wouldn't.
Yeah,
the firewall. So if you ally with somebody, I'm interested. Like one time trying the prismatic palisade from a Knight Cantor and trying this wall together to kind of set up barriers or barricades or bottleneck somebody on the table. But this it is 40 points, so I try to use this in the flame spitter together. I think the major strength of this is like you get reroll saves of 1 for units that are within, if I think it's only within 12 inches of this unit. And Magmadroth can fly over it, so it's a line of sight blocker. It's an obstacle, like it's a blocker in the way, so you have to move around it or fly over it. And I think, I mean, that's a massive strength. The other thing I've seen Tom brought up on Warhammer Weekly was that he was interpreting in a way I wasn't thinking about. But you cannot draw a line of sight to somebody if a line from the center of your base to the center of their base crosses the wall or within 1 inch of the wall. So I thought they would have cleared that up with the FAQ, but I guess technically you could have somebody walk in front of the wall, face the enemy, and then still get still be invisible from all the sparks shooting up or something. It seems kind of weird to me, but yeah, I mean, it's there as it's 40 points, and it's a Mystic Shield while it's out, and you get to also block line of sight or block somebody in. You know, I've had some fun times blocking somebody in bottleneck scenery and throwing this down. Like they can't. Like I played a game on Wednesday, and it was against Sylvaneth, and they couldn't get over to me because their wood was there. There was a bottleneck, and I threw the wall down, and I kept staying at the end of each round, and they couldn't get over to me. They had to go all the way around. They missed the entire game. So something simple as that, you know, it worked out really nice.
So I've had a lot of success a lot of success. I've had some success lately with my Gloomspite with the spider wall, which acts very similar from a wall point of view in conjunction with the palisade. So having like a double wall and kind of funneling them in. So while the spider wall kind of can drop anywhere on the table, there's definitely legs having a double wall to funnel people in and also block off objectives and just kind of like messing with people's movements. So I'd be curious to see if anyone tests that out and allies a wizard in to get Palisade and combines it with the Fyreslayer wall. Could kind of funnel them nicely in, and then you hit them with your berserkers or something sexy.
Yeah, it's like
maybe
like pull them off.
Or maybe I'm just a math hammerist. I have no experience running Fyreslayer, so you're like, Anthony, that doesn't work with us. Go back to your spider walls. Man, you got a lot of customization. You have some cool stuff you guys can do with your army, and there's so much. While your unit choices aren't as big as like a Legions of Nagash or a Gloomspite, there's still a lot of things. And I think you guys have mentioned as well that there's lots of different ways to build this list, and you guys are still practicing and seeing what the best builds are. So I'm really impressed. This is really cool. The last, I guess, couple of questions, we've kind of gone over who the army is. We've kind of talked about list building and lodges and customizing those lists. I guess based on all of your experience, because you guys have been playing literally from day one, you know, you guys have played, I think, Kenny, you mentioned over 200 games. Jason, I'm sure you've played probably close to 200 games.
A couple.
Two. You've played 2 games. Kenny's played 200. With all of your experience, like, how do you play with this army? Like, how do you play with them on the table? Like, what are your considerations? Like, give me this high level. How do I use the army?
Jason, what do you think?
I think it's building the list right now for me is building the same way as what I used to play. So when I started out with Fyreslayers with that initial release, it was get me a couple of Magmadroths. The Magmadroths became targets until people realized they weren't as effective as what they looked like they should be. So people kind of ignored the Magmadroths and went after the Hearthguard Berserkers, went after the main things, get rid of the buffing heroes. Now, the list building that I'm looking at, I switched from Magmadroth to having an all infantry army. My army was, I'd be first turn into combat with them, charging forward, running ahead. That's how I'm building my list, and that's how I'm looking at it now. Going Vostok Lodge, building something, but actually building in, now bringing the Magmadroth back in, the buffs that they have, the abilities they have, the 14 wounds they've got available with them. I like to get that board control right off the bat. So most of the scenarios looking at how can I get up there and hold this space, hold my end, make sure nobody's coming through. I think my list is built around that still. It looks a little bit different because now I feel like I can try and break through the enemy wall. So when I when I come up against a Nurgle list, I want to get through them instead of just standing there and holding them and stopping them from getting through me. That's my list building at the moment.
Yeah, I think for mine, I'm still trying different ways, and I'm not going to talk about the way it used to play because it's been a complete redesign. I think I like to have the threat of the heavy hitter. I think part of playing this army is a little bit of a psychological, like a mind game, a little bit with your opponent. And usually it's because they've never seen these. Like, what do these little things do? And they find out once you start playing. But now that you have to have everything's more expensive, you have to have smaller lists and I tried always thematically. I always want to have at least one Magmadroth, and I would love to have two. But now because it's been kind of priced out in some cases, unless you're going down that route, I kind of do with you what you do and have mostly infantry army, which is a shame, but it happens. I think though I'm very happy with the heroes for support. We talked about earlier, and I think that's necessary now that they have almost made me say it. Now that they have prayers that they can do, magic invocations, I think those are tools that you could throw up. There's board control. There's a lot of, I think a lot of it has to be in bubbles, or I use bubbles, but like in an area so you can have the synergies. But I think there's also a lot of room for little surprises, and that's they're not as tanky as Dispossess. So for them to hold objectives, you have to push forward and do a lot of damage. But now you can make their save better, so they can resist, they can hold objectives. But there's little tricks here. There's the Brewmaster lighting a piece of train on fire, especially doing it to Sylvaneth. I love doing that when you're wildwoods, become the volcano and become deadly and do more wounds to people.
Can I just pause you on that one, because this is the first time we've spoken about that ability
so
far. So I'd love just to pause really quickly to find out, how do you do that? What's it all about?
Yeah, it's his Warspro prayer. So it's not like one of the ones you get from the other chart. And you pick I think it's on a 3-up now?
On a 3-up, yeah. And terrain feature within 18.
Yeah, and so what it does, it used to be the old Deadleaf, like from original AOS. Now it's still the same. Say you hit a footprint of a wildwood. Initially, when you get hit, you draw a 1-inch lip out around that. And any models, yours or your opponent's, on a 6-up, they take a mortal wound. Then that lip goes away, and that piece of scenery, that footprint, becomes the current version of Deadly until your next hero phase, which is, if you roll a 1, you take 2-3 mortal wounds for the unit. But you have some board control there. So he can also, within 12 inches, he can roll 2 dice. If you get a 6, you can sort of curse. He's like smelling out the Urgold. He's like, that one over there is not right. I'm like, throw some coals at him, and then that lets your army do reroll hits, and then if you roll 2 6s, reroll wounds against that unit. So he still can sniff out Urgold, but he likes to now, instead of pointing and shouting, he likes to fling things at them. Because he's a grumpy old man. It's the Chaos Dwarf in him, I think, that's making him do that. Makes him angry. The other thing, though, I don't know if I can move on. I want to mention another ability here.
No, go for it. Go for it. I just wanted to pause just to make sure that people knew that one and they know how to get access to the vault, because it is a cool ability, especially at least in the old Sylvaneth where there was just trees for days. We don't know what that's going to look like in the new book, but I like that ability.
And the other one that I love doing this in games, and it's harder now that the Battlesmith has such a good use. But if he's going to get killed, or even if you take 2 Battlesmiths, you do this on objectives or choke points that you need people to not get through. But you can do none shall defile the icon when he dies. And this to me it was amazing last time because hitting a Woody was terrible. Now it's a lot better, but still, you can drop the icon, and if you don't have any artifact that makes it 18, it's just 12-inch bubble wholly within, and they can decide none shall defile the icon, and they'll guard it. And so you can't move the rest of the game except to pile in. But you can reroll your wounds, your hits, and your wounds as well. So that becomes huge, and you can do that like on an objective or near an objective. You can get the bubble right, and then if you have Lords of the Lodge, you probably do this too, where you can the way you still can move is to pile in, and you kind of chain up through the piling in as you want to maybe extend out a little bit, but because you're activating twice, so you get to move a little bit further. So that is a trick that I still use and still super effective for me. You lose your guy, but if you're down to this is how I win the game, I need to hold this objective or keep him off this area or hold him over here, then that's a little trick to do. Because a lot of times they who's that guy that gives you +1 to save? They want to shoot him. Yep. I always tell them, when they're new players, I tell them what it does, but if you're playing at an event or something, you know, they have the war scrolls, but I wouldn't go out of my way to say like, yeah, if you kill him, I can do this cool thing to you. You know, like, yeah, I think that's one I don't see a lot of, but I always get people with that one, and they're like, wow, that's really. They think like, oh, cool, he's dead, but then round 2, 3, and 4, they're like, oh shit, this is really hard. Like they just smashed me all of a sudden. They didn't want to go away from that little umbrella that guy dropped. You know, they just it's a huge buff.
Love it. That's great. That's great.
Yep.
So we've talked a little bit about how to use them on the table, and I think you guys have, you know, made it quite clear. You want to run, you want to get ahead, you want to get into combat as soon as possible. I think you've got some really cool like teleporting shenanigans, kind of tunneling if you want to go down that route. So what advice would you give a new player starting with Fyreslayers, or maybe who've just kind of bought their first Start Collecting box? Like, what's that advice you give that new player?
We usually getting a Start Collecting box is a good way to get into it financially. One of the reasons I like the Fyreslayer group, we've never really had problems. I have moderators all over the world for time zones for letting people join. But we've never really had issues. And some groups, they get mad when it's the same question over and over again. But because we only have 3 units, and you know, usually it's how do I get out my Volkai Berserkers? Do I use this option,
Yeah.
and Hearthguard? Do I use this? And in a lot of other groups, you might have people go like, "Oh, it's the same question," blah blah blah. But we don't have that problem. And if someone does that, then they would be gone anyway. So it's very welcoming to new players. So if you come and look and ask these questions, you're not going to get angry internet back at you. And I think there's so many people joining. There's like 600 people who joined since the book was announced. So there's a lot of advice and attention there that you can get. But I would see, you know, usually you probably want to get a couple boxes of Hearthguard, and you know, you're starting out and you want to get to play what your heroes do, and then maybe start with smaller units and see as you play. Because I'm still doing this even now with the units, is kind of measure and see how you go, and you maybe add 5 or add 10 to the unit, and then kind of see where you can keep your bubble and your synergies together, or when does that collapse? You know, when do you become too big and too unwieldy to be able to move and get the things you need? And yeah, I mean, I would try some of the lodges first before you try other art. I mean, it could go either way, but I guess if I had to pick one, I would say try 1 or 2 of the lodges first before you do picking your own, because you might see these are built 4 very different themes. They're thematically very different. And if you get a feel for kind of how the army plays, then I understand it a bit better. I can drop these and make my own lodge and make my own things over here, because I have a little bit better understanding of where the strengths are in the army as it is now.
And before I ask Jason that question, I will grab the link off Kenny, and I'll put it on the show description for the replay. So you guys, if you're not a part of the Fyreslayers Facebook group and you want to be a part of it, do check in the channel description on the replay, and I'll have it on there. Jason, what's that advice you'd give little Timmy, who's going to Games Workshop tomorrow, fully hyped from this video? And little Timmy wants to grow a beard. He wants to get a mohawk, and he's going to buy Fyreslayers.
The Start Collecting box is perfect to start. The idea you've got 3 heroes right out of the gate, and they're 3 good heroes too. Like the Runesmiter, you can play with tunneling. If you do the Runesmiter on foot, that whole give that once per battle +1 to the save. If you do the Runesmiter on Magmadroth, you can play around with that. Think about, I think Kenny mentioned it before, put different, like play around with what's on the Magmadroth. The Runefather and Runeson, they swap legs, like it's the same legs between them. So you can like blue tack the bodies on for a bit, find out what they're like, play with them, see how they go. Do stuff with the Runefather. I think try the Greyford Lodge is a great one, because you can throw a few artifacts on your list. You give them to all your characters and have a chance to play some narrative games, start to play with some people and try out what they do. You don't have to be restricted by how many heroes you've got compared to how many units are there, and try them out. But the Hearthguard Berserkers, that's going to be first thing on the next to buy list. They're the ones that are going to do the damage when you get into playing a game. So and then Start Collecting box number 2 and number 3. That's that. I've got too many.
I guess another thing I tell people on the Facebook group and in person too is when you get your kits, if you're really not sure, don't glue on the weapons. Like, build the bodies and then play a game or two and decide which version you like. I mean, this is not at an event. This is before you go to an event, but play with your friends or your gaming club or whatever, where it doesn't matter that the model's not finished, and just tell them, I don't know, I just got this. I'm trying both weapons to see which one I prefer, and 99.9% of the time they'd be like, sure, that's fine, I'll help you out. Let's do it. And then you play once or twice, and then you can finish gluing your double axes or your shield and pick or your broad axe, your pull. You decide, because they're pricey to buy as models, even though the Start Collecting Box is a massive deal. Even with the price raise, it's still a massive deal. But yeah, I would also recommend that if you have access, if you're not sure about weapons, just play a couple games, try each one in a game before you go to an official competitive setting.
No, that's great advice, because we are a friendly community. I can speak on behalf of Australia, England, and America, where I've played, and everyone's super awesome. So I would find it very hard to believe that someone would not want to play you or allow you to test which weapons. It's so irrelevant. Obviously not at a tournament, but just generally. So definitely do that. Practice, have a play. Final question before we wrap things up. Is there any other advice that you'd give, like top tips or kind of final thoughts about Fyreslayers that you'd want to impart to this group? Or do you think we've covered it?
I think we kind of covered it in that last question for me. It's that try it out. Try everything. Play it all. This is so many different ways to play now with the list. Being able to put in allies that was the AOS 2.0 answer was for Fyreslayers. Oh, look, you can now ally in a wizard from another army. That was their answer for how to play. And now there's just so many different ways to do this. There's so many ways to put your army list together and try it. And yes, we've only got 3 main units, but that means you don't have to go out and buy as much. You don't have to get as many different units to start trying out the different ways that this plays together. I love it. I love that we've got that much variety in list building compared to what I felt like had got us into a corner of, this is to be competitive, you've got to play this one way. I see much more flexibility around this, the way that I wanted to see it when they first were released. So well done on the re-release of this from Games Workshop, because I think it really has changed it for me into I bought Idoneth Deepkin. I was starting a new list, and now I'm back to Fyreslayers. I hadn't played the Idoneth Deepkin in a tournament, and now I'm sticking with Fyreslayers.
So if you didn't mention that wouldn't have never happened. Like, people wouldn't know that you've got like a a cupboard of shame with elves.
Yeah, the beardless ones.
Well, I guess first thing is make sure your product is strong for your hair, for your mohawk, so that you make your hair stays. It's very important. I think the top tip actually is what I did to learn the new army. That I pass this on. I think this is actually a good idea. That's what I'm telling you people. For me, because I played it for over 3 years with the old rules and seeing some changes. It's such a it's like they picked everything up and dropped it back down again. It's such a big redesign. So what I did instead, and ultimately got to the best results with this, is instead of writing down units, I wrote down effects. I wrote down buffs. Like I went like +1 save, +1, and I wrote them down. Or you can use index cards or post-it notes, and instead then look at what you want to have the effects and the synergies, and then you can go to the characters and see what they can do, and you can work from there. But I think it's I have over 3 years to divorce myself from these previous these rules. So now I had to do this, and it really helped actually. And if you're a visual learner, or you just you can write on a piece of paper and just draw lines, however you want to do it. But looking at sort of the effect you want to have, because you don't have a lot of units, and the effect you have and how you want to play, and in doing that, your own play style will you have a bias of that, or it will develop. You'll kind of picture it developing. You'll see like, oh, that'd be kind of neat here and there. And so it's a different way to work to get to the end result. But it's been really successful for me and for new people that have joined or started or came back to Fyreslayers. That's been the top tip, I guess, and helping people to build the army. And then once you do that, you could try, and then you say you play a game, you're like, oh, this isn't work. You move that post-it or card down, and I need to have better redundancy for this effect, so then you move things around. And I hope that makes sense. That's what we've been doing actually, and it's been very successful.
No, that's great. And I'm going to ask one final question because it's come from the chat. I'm going to give a chat special. So this one is completely off the cuff, and that is I'm going to rephrase this question, but which armies or what types of armies does Fyreslayers find as easier games, or not as challenging, and ones that are really hard to play or to kind of win? Is there any armies or even like build build types or
Yeah. I think that the dangerous ones are magic heavy, because we don't have magic. We don't have really have like one we don't bind. So I think that is really is terrifying. And heavy shooting armies are very scary too. That can snipe out the characters. Those are like two things. Chaff is another good thing against us, but I think shooting heavy and very heavy magic that will just they can cast like 7 or 8 spells in the hero phase can be very, very difficult. As well as fast moving units too, which I know covers a lot, but if I had to narrow it down, I'd say really shooting, massive shooting, like 4 ballistas and a bunch of units of shooters, or escape and shooting isn't as bad because it's a little bit more close range. But yeah, those I think are some of the main weaknesses. Are you want me to do like positives too? Like
you can do both, or Jason can do the
do this.
positives. But
yeah, we can come back. What do you think, Jason, are some of the bad matchups for us?
I haven't got that worked out yet with this new release. Like it's still too fresh for me. I haven't played enough. But getting into those lists that, like for me, I feel like the list now will go well against those units that used to have that wall, the shield wall that we kind of hold the units. With Nurgle, you go up against a unit, they just keep rebuilding guys back in again. You could never kill anything. I think we've now got that tool to go in there and do the damage and get to it. So it's working at that, trying to work out how to break through. It used to be just hold the ground, hold the line, make sure we stay long enough to get the objective points that we need to. But now to actually push through and do some damage and get to the other side, that's what I'm after. So I think there's a bunch of armies around that would normally have that. I think magic, I think Kenny's right. We still don't have that full answer to magic. Unbind is okay, but it doesn't give you your endless spells and what you're going to be casting or doing, the kind of damage that gets dished out by some of those. What happens when you face up against Nagash and he hand of dusts you? That's why I went with allies, was because I needed to stop hand of dust. Those are still going to be a challenge, but I think it's a different game now, and I've still got to learn that one before I can really work out where we are.
Yeah, and any type of army that is easier, or like ones that you don't get too concerned about?
I think anything elven we should be able to kill because they're elves. Only good elf is a dead elf.
I guess I'd say, so destruction, like the smaller count, like ogres or even ironjaws, smaller count, but multi-wound models, because that's kind of we're more of an elite army now. I think are usually pretty good matchups for me, and part of that's probably because they have the movement to come forward, but they haven't gotten the rule support to let them kind of keep up. Which I know for ironjaw players and ogre players, I feel you. I pour one out for you. But the one that's always just fun, I loved playing Khorne. And now the Wrathmongers were a huge part of that. Now that's changed a little bit. I don't know, but it's just a good old-fashioned bloodbath in the middle, And I always have fun when I play Khorne, even this new incarnation of Khorne. They're just fun. They're fun matchups, whether they're in there, even if they're competitive. Like you still, usually there'll be a lot of screaming from the table in good ways and cheering, because it's just a slaughter in the center. And Khorne's happy, the Fyreslayers are happy. Everybody wins. Those are always usually pretty fun games for me.
Yeah, awesome. I think that answers the question. So, guys, I think we've wrapped up. It's been quite an extensive 2.5 hours talking Fyreslayers. So, pretty cool considering you've only got 3 Battleline options, and we've talked for 2.5 hours. So, some amazing knowledge bombs dropped. Thank you both, Runefather Kenny and Runefather Jason. I feel like I've grown a little bit from a rune underling to maybe like a stepson, not quite a son yet, but a stepson.
You're no longer a flameling.
I'm not a flameling, but I'm growing as I don't know. Go back to the pizza oven and get another Hawaiian pizza from the pizza oven. Guys, is there any shout outs you want to give to any of your local communities, any podcasts or any videos or anything? Like, where can people find you? I might start with Jason because poor Kenny's drinking his mother or his monster.
I was a founding player for the Beast of Belco at Warhammer Belconnen. Great team of guys there. It took over a few years. We just built up the AOS community and gaming on the tournament scene, and just had a lot of fun. Shame to have moved to Brisbane, but hey, I'm on the lookout now either for a new team or I'm recruiting for Beast of Brisbane or Beast Coast if you want to stay all over the West Coast. We're thinking about that too.
So, and if people want to chat to you, are you on the Twitterverse or the Instagrams, or are you in the Facebook group?
I'm in the Facebook group, so you can find me there under the Fyreslayers Facebook group. I'm in AOS Brisbane, AOS Sydney, AOS Canberra, AOS Australia pages. I'm on those places as well. So and at tournaments you can find me as well. But I can link up through the Fyreslayers Facebook group is a good spot to get a hold of me too.
Awesome. Been great having you. And Kenny?
Yeah, the Fyreslayer group now has, I started it with 3 people, and now it has 2,253 at the moment. So that's pretty good. For Fyreslayers info, I would go there. As far as me, my Twitter is at Kenny Lull. I can send it to you if you like.
It's in the show notes already.
And then I'm a co-host of Combat Phase, like Movement Phase, Shooting Phase, Combat Phase, a weekly podcast, mostly weekly. We do a lot of Black Library author interviews as well too. Like all the authors have been interviewed many times. So if you're into that, if you want to hear about authors, you can check us out. And then our gaming club here in Madison, Wisconsin, is called Mitigating Your Cover League, because it was an old 40K thing. So now we just usually call it like the 30K, 40K Madison and specialist games. But there's like a couple hundred people in our Facebook group. So if you're in the area or a few hours drive out and you want to come up, we go to events, we host events, we go travel around. It's a really good group. We play at Noble Knight Games, which is a giant game distributor that a lot of players, at least in North America, know, and that's moved to our backyard. So we have their warehouse, and their giant new play space is awesome. So it's a great area if you're somewhere in the Midwest.
Awesome.
Yes, I'll stop.
No, keep going. You can keep going. But guys, if you want to hear more from Kenny, he has an awesome podcast, so do check that out. And I do have his Twitter in the channel description or the show notes, which funnily enough has a link to the podcast. Guys, thank you very much. This has been great. We are on the 2.5 hour mark. I'm going to go to bed because I've got work in the morning, but this has been an absolute delight. I've learned so much about Fyreslayers. The chat has gone wild. Lots of questions, and I hope you guys, all the knowledge is kind of consumed and people feel more comfortable and confident in using this new version of the Fyreslayers. And we see more of them on the table because these little naked baby dwarfs with a pizza oven, with their bidet and their, what else did you call them, Kenny?
Oh, they had a fence and a Godzilla.
Yep, the fence, the bidet, the pizza oven, the naked baby dwarves. They're awesome, and we should see more of them. And it's a shame not to see them on the table enough. So do it.
Join us for Grimnir.
Jason, Kenny, thank you both. Guys in the chat, thanks very much. And we'll see you on the next Faction Focus. But boys, thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Anthony.
Thanks, been fun.